Plane Society YouTube channel in just a moment. Let me send out live stream notifications. And if anybody's in the chat, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, complaints, I can address those now. So much to talk about, obviously. It's been a very, well, I'd say it's been a typical 322. Nothing atypical about this, it's just predictable. You know, we predict PSYOPs. We predict predictive programming. It's a very predictable, hyperstitious world. I mean, these are spoiler alerts. You know, spoiler alert for the world stage. If you don't want to know what's going to happen next at the level of the zeitgeist and all that, you may want to cover your ears. Leave the room. Okay, so what are we going to call this? We're going to say Skull and Bones Ritual Review. And this is for Infinite Plane Saturn Day. Very important opportunity to kind of review whatever we did the last week. And I'll put open phones for open minds. It's a little early. We're starting at 3:22 officially. But I want to get everyone in the house here. You know, maybe I should just turn it on now and put it back on the replay. What were we listening to? I also have to create a thumbnail. Let's go ahead and do that really quick. I've been using Bing.com's image create. So for example, Penguin Illuminati at the tomb of the Yale Skull and Bones. So basically that's my prompt, and we'll see what it gives us. Alright, so we'll be back in just a few minutes. Obviously, we are about 15 minutes early. I'm considering sending out a text alert. Okay, you're not going to believe this art, but, well, you will here in a minute. If you're on the newsletter, I'll send it out to you. A little ominous. Looks like an old black and white photograph of a penguin in a tomb full of human skulls. And he has the all-seeing eye and Illuminati triangle tattooed on his chest. Or painted. I don't know if you can tattoo penguins. It looks like it's tattooed though. The real deal. The only way to be certain that you won't be left out on notifications is to just join the free newsletter at infiniteplanesociety.com. I send out live stream notifications with links to where you can hear us. And you'll see the numbers flood in here in just a moment. I'm about to send out notifications. Send to everyone. Send to everyone. Okay, good. You'll see the numbers increase here momentarily. And I have a ton of notes. A lot of people in our server have been very active on the auto-hoaxing of this event. And you know what really separates us from all the rest? Not a single person in our room is there wondering, oh my God, what happened? We're more like, okay, how do they accomplish this hoax? Like, we don't even start off giving them the benefit of any kind of doubt. Kind of outgrew that. Alright, let me go ahead and open up the main channel. Let's go ahead and find AutoHoax Chief Crow as we wait for everyone to flood in here. And as always, I'll put links in the chat for anything that we're doing, anything we're listening to, etc. We'll be right back. I'm going to get the main channel on.
I'm on so good. You just auto-believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless eyes.
My buddy, my buddy and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
96, y'all.
Gonna filter your eyes and serve your mind. The weatherman, he's just another bad joke. You can be a doomed little donkey like Eeyore. I'm gonna be an auto hoax, and it feels so good. You just auto-believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless eyes. No heart, ain't got no soul. Food, water, weather, maps, TV, bones, books, secrets, symbols, numbers, planets, etc.
Alright everyone, good afternoon. Infinite Plane Saturn Day. Very important follow-up. This is the Skull and Bones 322 review, and we will be reviewing the production, the event, what Google might refer to as a sensitive event, but we'll be examining it and in its full context. We're not automatically assuming it to be real as presented. And it already has its guardrails, its false flags. It's also notable that the last event comparable to that in Moscow was like 19 years ago. So it's like another significant event, if you ask me. Probably a major 9/11 sized thing for them. The death toll, 133. Make of that what you will. Some terrorist had his ear chopped off, which made me think of, is it Malchus? The one in the Bible leading up to the crucifixion. There may be something with the ear being severed. Maybe some Reservoir Dogs reference. I'm not sure. But disappointing production as usual. Easy to deconstruct. Simunition more than anything. In fact, let me get out my notes. Simunition is already being used. They use this in schools. In fact, in California, I saw this recent press conference where they were saying they're going to start telling parents before they do hyper-realistic school shooting drills to traumatize their children. So they know that it's going to be just a drill. So their kids aren't wetting themselves and having heart attacks and PTSD from it. But they also are going to stop using simunition, which is basically real munitions that involve some kind of, I don't know if it's little packets, but they shoot off sparks and it looks like fireworks. And people looking at the initial clips were like, what is this? Flamethrowers? No, no, no. And again, we're talking about the Crocus concert event. And in addition to the simunition, we did see evidences of previous drills. It was predicted that within 2 weeks there would be an attack on Moscow planned at a concert hall. So this has already been suggested. And looking at the Crocus just on the outside, it even had the word Vegas on it, which we'll get to that. Again, it was on 322, which we had pretty much said is a super day for a PSYOP, which we've said ever since the King Super PSYOP on 322. At store number 33 there in Boulder, 33 union workers, a bunch of people going in for their C-19 shots, and instead got the AR-15 shots. That event was supposedly a retaliation for Christchurch, which has significance here. All these events are connected. They all exist within the same fictional universe, which most people exist within, including truthers. We do not. What else? Oh, Zelensky had even said something about the people must feel his power. Other mentions of nasty surprises. And like every other similar event, this has been nothing but Scooby-Doo justice. Meaning, in the time that you could watch one episode of Scooby-Doo, where the bad guy does something, the mystery van crew shows up, and they unmask the bad guy, and everybody knows who did it and why, and you get the full explanation, all within, half an hour. We had that. We had that here. We even have videos of confessions where one of the bad guys says that he was paid like 500 million rubles or something, which is like $5,000. But we have the who, what, why. We just need a manifesto. But now we got confessions. And I even read somewhere, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about last week with cannibalism everywhere. Cannibal Russian Satanists running wild in Ukraine, 33-year-old cannibal Satanists who had already eaten teenagers, set loose. Then you have barbecue in Haiti, and they're eating each other in the streets there. Well, this guy, this terrorist, this ISIS terrorist, who had his ear chopped off, was force-fed his own ear. So you have forced auto-cannibalism. I'm not sure what the metascript value of all of this is. Perhaps it's just meant to terrify the masses. We are joined by John Francis, Ears Up, Duas Impera G33. Michael Cervantes says, happy belated 322. Well, I wanted to start at 3:22 p.m. because we missed yesterday. And we missed because of Gremlin. Computer had to reset, but it was a good thing because as a result of me resetting everything, I decided to test a few things out. And one of the reasons I stopped streaming on Rumble is they make it so you have to create a new key every time. So it's just, I don't have time to go through all these things. But now I'm one of the beta testers of their static key, meaning I don't have to mess with it. It's just on. So we're back on Rumble. And we are back on the 24/7. So whenever you're looking for a chat, think tank, you don't necessarily have to go into Discord or the Gilded. You simply go to whenever we're live 24/7, there's going to be a chat. And I do monitor anything you chat here will be used against the world stage. I will take note of it. I'll screen cap it and throw it in my minds. So again, we're talking about the Crocus concert event, simunition, predicted programming. I was even watching some show called, I think it's called All Knives Out. I'll have the exact name for you here shortly. And I'm just getting started on the show, and weirdly, it has a scene where they're talking about a massacre at a Russian theater. But let's see what else we have here. Special Forces building directly opposite Crocus where the attack took place. At the same time the terrorists were able to run away, Special Forces drove to the place of the tragedy, and it took them more than an hour. Yeah, that stands out. I was just passing by a Whole Foods, and I saw a very large security guard chasing a man holding 2 bags that he had stolen. I think these were comforters or something from a shopping center next door. But I mean, it was instant response. Security's right there, ready to go. And some guy's trying to get away with merch, and they catch him. And here you're like, yeah, it did take them a little bit of time. Which is part of the story. This leads the Alex Jones types, the truther types, to say they let it happen. It was an inside job. 322 was an inside job. Putin allowed it to happen. And you're already seeing pieces put out there to get people to lead to that to lead people to that conclusion. Here's a tweet from Golub who says, in 2022, the Russians conducted a drill simulating Ukrainian soldiers taking hostages at the Crocus Hall venue. So at this very theater, in fact. Fascinating. Let's see, we have more piling in. Mango Penguins, Lord Laney. Says, guy running up behind him picking up the spent magazines, clean up crew style. Oh yeah, and I was looking at some of the alleged victims. I mean, we're looking at highly paid actors, in my opinion. People getting deals of a lifetime. It's the new Hollywood. But I see these two on a bench, and I probably can't even put it on the screen, but they just looked incredibly rigid, we'll say. And, rigor mortis takes a little time to set in, but I see these two, they literally look like mannequins casually tossed over a bench. Just like dummy and dummier. Not convincing at all. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, Dewis in Paris says something actually happened. Totally missed it. Just waking up. Oh, yeah. 322's ritual was in Moscow. It was a theater shooting. 133 reported dead. Just as many injured, if not more. This is where it's at. Says, have you seen this? Big hit responds to Nipsey Hussle conspiracy theories. I'll take a look. Mom with Son says, my favorite auto hoaxer. Thank you for joining. G33 says, I smell alphabet agencies involved, Russian, I think. See, that's the truther guardrail. They'll say, it was an inside job. It wasn't ISIS. It was intelligence agencies. It was FBI, CIA, Mossad. Anytime someone steers you to the intel agencies, they're distracting you from the fact that the intel agencies serve the same apparatus that presents the PSYOPs. This was done by the PSYOP entertainment complex, meaning it wasn't done. Like, this wasn't what they're presenting, but it's part of the bigger media landscape. This is simply a contemporary myth. It's a hyperstition. So it's not a whodunit. The media did it. The government did it. The global government we're not supposed to know exists did it. I mean, there's no point really in isolating a scapegoat, because what that does is it allows the right to say the left did it, or vice versa. I ignore scapegoats. These are all red herrings. This is where it's at. It says, Tim, why does DirecTV leave dishes all over the place? I'm not working customer retention anymore, so if you have complaints about DirecTV, I can't help, can't give you any credits. But just so you know, you can usually ask, if there's any kind of credits available if you were mistakenly signed up for something because you didn't understand the person who pitched it to you. It is a good question, though. It's mostly for show. Look, Starlink exists. But I'll say this. It's not coming from orbiting anything. The Loon X balloons were serving... They were servicing people with internet anywhere in the world. Loon X can provide stable, powerful internet, and yet it wasn't cost effective. So they stopped using it, supposedly. But after Loon X disappeared, Starlink shows up. I'm like, interesting. But they have the disc for the theater, just for the prop, so people think they're getting it from outer space. G33 says, I've listened to a Russian perspective this morning. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of stuff suggesting inside job almost immediately. Which is, again, it's normal. With every single one of these events, they're going to do that. 133 is a key ritual number. Yeah, this is where it's at. Mention Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle is a rapper who died at 33 around Holy Week on 331. And he was in a video by is it Robbie Rich? Or Roddy Rich. And it's called Die Young. And it's part of this what they call the Die Young curse. But in that video, Nipsey Hussle was actually on Roddy Rich's phone in a cemetery, in the reflection, when he says, I don't want to die young, and it's at 1 minute and 33 seconds. Again, 1 minute 33, dies 331. 133 also has very specific meaning to the Freemasons. When they open up their Bibles during their rituals, that's the psalm. They put it on 133. Okay, let's see what else I have here. G33 says, I remember something similar with the Chechnya school shooting thing. Yeah, is that the one from 19 years ago? But they've been drilling for this. And blaming ISIS, of course. And ISIS, you all know what that is. And ISIS isn't some government-operated group that does bad things. ISIS is just costumes that certain people put on for these productions. Does anybody here actually think that anybody died? Yes or no? How many people died yesterday? How many people lost an ear yesterday? Because I'm noticing something that really stands out now. As we grow, there's a big group of us doing this research, and none of us even begin with the premise that the media establishes. It never even starts there anymore. We don't have anybody in the rooms trying to stop us from saying, hey, maybe you guys want to observe a moment of silence for those affected. G33 says wasn't there. Wasn't there is not a valid response. In fact, I would say it's a cop-out. It's a indirect argument from authority, because then who was there? The media. Are you saying that the media then can be trusted because they were there? I actually wrote a whole article on this. I don't know, I wasn't there is a cop-out. On what basis can we call fake news fake? I put this out on March 13th. Let me go ahead and read this. It's not that long. Some who argue against the auto hoax critique of media will use, I don't know, I wasn't there. The implication is that we, the non-media, weren't there, therefore we can't know it was fake. This is a cop-out. To say nothing is knowable or real, unless one can personally and physically attest to it, presents an unreasonable burden of proof. Distrusting liars is not denialism of reality, but a defense of it. So we know something happened, but we differ in the meaning. Simply stating one does not know presents a void. What is the default assumption behind the I don't know? Are we suggesting that the events are to be assumed real since we weren't there? We don't need to be physically present to know something happened. Regarding news events, auto hoaxers do not suggest the event did not happen, but rather the reportage is deliberately misleading by design. It's up to news consumers to decide where they place the burden of proof. If one trusts media and accepts claims at face value, then the default is that each story is true unless stated otherwise, which ironically means you're waiting for the liars to tell you when they're lying. So those who reject the screen's implicit argument from authority can only claim to know an event has been reported, but cannot assume that the reporters are eyewitnesses. Because we understand that the media's role, and this is global, it's in perpetuating a monolithic psychological operation, nonstop. So as an informed agnostic, knowing how this works, all I can say is, based on the evidence, it looks like every other similar event. And so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have all fit the same pattern. So my point of it is, the burden of proof is no longer ours. But the default belief system in place is you trust it until something tells you it's fake. And no, we don't necessarily have to go with that. We have to look at the big picture, which means you can't judge it right away. So people who just believe the news automatically will say 133 people died. It's like, I don't even know if one did. I'm still waiting. So how many? Does anybody here think it was more than 0? Right now, I'm going to say 0 until proven otherwise. This is where it's at. It says, I have no idea what occurred in Moscow, just saying. I do. I do know what occurred. There was a lot of people running around. You saw what appeared to be guns. You saw some people running, some walking. So we do know something happened. But all you know is what you can see on the screen. And what it is and isn't is up to us to discern. But based on past precedent, and past precedent's been pretty clear, we're looking at psyops. We're looking at staged events. When has it ever been different? We'll start going through some of the notes here. There's quite a lot. I don't want to focus on too many of the images, but the concert hall is burning down after terrorists set fire to it. So far, over 40 innocents have been killed. This was one of the first reports. You see it on fire there, Crocus. Very dramatic. Now, if your default position is, I think it might be real, then you're just an auto believer. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a non-believer. I'm completely outside of the MSM Plus box because I know what I'm looking at. We're trained at this. We have been doing this long enough. We don't need to pretend not to know what we know or to operate on this premise. Whereas the truthers are always on the edge of their seat. Maybe this is real. Maybe it's about to go kinetic. Maybe it's time to run for the hills. More than 10 bodies found in one of the toilets of the Crocus Center. People may have tried to hide there from the gunfire, but they suffocated because of the fire. So based on this, they upped the death toll. People couldn't breathe. Someone called Benjamin Crump. Now, this is the typical take. This is Alex Jones. He says NATO strikes. So Alex Jones' operating premise is it was real, people died, except it was done by NATO. So he can remotely tell you who did it. He solved the crime. It wasn't ISIS. But how does he know? He doesn't have any more information than we do. But, auto believers are going to believe. It's a nice break from Kate Middleton. Now here's another one. Breaking, one of the shooters has been arrested at the Moscow concert, and this is Syrian girl, who's a pretty frequent InfoWars correspondent. She's at that level of just guard railing, and you see them on camera, live streamers around, arresting the terrorist. This is where, in Scooby-Doo, they come out of the mystery van and they catch the bad guy and they pull the hood off so everybody can see. So they've already solved the mystery for you. This is how you know it's a psyop and not a real crime. It's packaged so neatly. It's like a TV show. Elephant Tusk says, do you think it was staged by Russian or NATO operatives? No, that's Alex Jones' Trutherville level analysis. That is operating on the premise that it was real. You have to, think about this. The space station. The space station is shared by America and Russia. Do you not consider the fact that they're both in total compliance with the mind war at the highest levels? So whenever you're looking at these events, you can't consider it to be coming from a different place. In other words, there's going to be stories it was staged to entertain Trutherville. But the fact of it is, it didn't happen at all. They're fighting over who did it, not did it even happen. It's not a whodunit. It's a what is it. It's a hoax. That's our starting point. If your starting point is we got to figure out who did it, it's a mystery because the media is lying, they got you in the box. That's the MSM Plus box, meaning the news is reporting it, but there's more to the story. That is a fascinating thing they do. It's just the way they filter people into this bifurcated war. Again, this is a sensitive event, so I'm a little sensitive right now. A sensitive event is an unforeseen event or development that creates significant risk to Google's ability to provide high-quality, relevant information and ground truth. Now, when has Google ever provided high-quality, relevant information or ground truth? And it will reduce the insensitive or exploitative content in prominent and monetized features. The media is basically, if it bleeds, it leads. So that's all they do is they monetize exploitative content. They monetize fake blood. Here's an image, a still shot. And no, this isn't Star Wars, and it's not a flamethrower. No, this is a terrorist attack. Now, look at these sparks. And I think this is important to highlight because even people in Normieville who have any experience with guns, or even truthers who want to believe this is real because they have this morbid need to believe it's real, like everybody, this morbid world stage religion. And it is a religion, and it's a death cult, and it's a doomsday cult. But those who believe this is real, it's merely that. They have no reason. It's morbid. But a lot of religions have, I think, qualities about them that are somewhat morbid, anti-human, misanthropic. The mainstream media religion's no different. But the people who in real life go to gun ranges, who know about weapons, might see this and think, okay, something is up here. Might. I mean, people will turn off their expertise. You could be a professional video editor working for Hollywood on science fiction films. And if someone gave you something, the quality of what NASA gives us, you would laugh at them. and fire them. But if they see something on TV from NASA, they will think it's real, despite their professional knowledge and technical expertise in the editing and CGI field. You have a typical anonymous walkthrough video. It's blurry with a flip phone from like 2005. Whenever you have a mass casualty event, especially at a concert or at any kind of a public event, you will generally, like parades, you'll have one person, anonymous, no face on the screen, no name, with a flip phone from 15 years ago. And they will walk through and give you blurry footage and not stop to check any pulses, not stop to ask if anybody's okay. It's the weirdest thing. No empathy. If I was walking through a field of people on the ground, my assumption wouldn't be they're all dead. I'd be like, let's check a pulse, let's get help, let's triage or something. But no, they just walk through with their blurry phone. Typical anonymous walkthrough, no attempt. But people find this stuff convincing. You know who's probably mad about this is Candace Owens. She finally got fired from Daily Wire, and she wanted to probably launch her career again as independent, and now this is totally just sideswiped that. Nobody cares at this moment. Maybe in a couple of days we'll care. Okay, we were starting our conversation about Russian cosmism, and then this thing in Russia happened. So let me get back to the top. I think we've made... Yes, there's so much going on. It's unbelievable. Kyle Rittenhouse getting chased off the stage. You know, we've seen him run before from that angry mob. He's still the same. He's going out there talking about what he did, but he walked onto a college campus where they had this Turning Point USA thing, and he just didn't want to have to answer questions related to Charlie Kirk, who sponsored it. So he's at an event more or less sponsored by what do you want to call Charlie Kirk? He plays a racist on TV. I don't think these guys believe what they say. Let's see what we have here. Isabel Ann says, happy Saturn Day. Eclipse energy loading until Monday. All Mars just moved into Pisces with the last hoax. I figured it'd be a higher body count with that. Yeah, 133 is pretty high. Moscow strong. Yeah, the eclipse is coming, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to holding a number of internet prophets accountable for their gibberish, for their taking part in what seems to be an active measure, targeting critical thinkers. G33 want to call in? Okay, if you want to call in, it'll be probably the second hour. We have to go through all the notes first. Illusion Warfare on X posted, I can't prove that no one died, but that doesn't mean I have to go along with the Black Mirror projected reality of people dying. And he's posting an image here of black body bags in the street, theatrically placed. And this is fascinating here because he remarks this quite often. He calls it illusion warfare because PSYOP doesn't do enough. The word PSYOP has been co-opted by the mainstream. Hoax doesn't explain it because it suggests that it's a hoax and the media got tricked. But the media are the hoaxers working in tandem with government and law enforcement and it's just so widespread. It's too monolithic to use a term like false flag or PSYOP or hoax. Illusion warfare. I use Mind War, which is right out of the late Michael Aquinos, Colonel Michael Aquinos' book, Mind War, which really describes where we are right now, where we've always been. But his point here, Les Luthor's point, is he's not going to go with the default belief, and I won't either. Nobody tells me what to believe. You can't put a holy book in my face and tell me, hey, this was written, therefore you must believe. I'm like, no, I don't think so. So you're going to hold a screen up to my face? Like, hey, I wasn't there at the crucifixion, so I guess it was real. I wasn't there at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I guess it was real. I wasn't there at fill-in-the-blank fill-in-the-blank fake shooting, I guess it was real. That can't be your standard. If that's your standard, then the media has conquered you. They have pulled you through the screen. They have deposed your yourself, your I, you are no longer a perceiver, you are now a believer. You are no longer a knower, you are now a believer. It's like joining a cult. I don't let media think for me. And they will try to claim moral high ground. They don't have it. They're a bunch of terrorists. They will try to claim intellectual high ground. They don't have it. They're mindless believers when it comes to the news. They don't critically examine it, and they don't have an accurate picture of how it all works. Maybe it's arrogance, maybe it's habit, whatever it is. They're not able to admit that they've been wrong or they've been duped. They think they're unfoolable. They can't be tricked. Angle of Elevation says, if you ought to believe the media, aren't you conspiring with them? Funny how reality is flipped. Absolutely. If you go along with it, you are the terrorist. You're spreading the terror propaganda because the terror is fake. The fear is real. The fear is the main weapon. So if you're going around spreading it, you are the terrorist. In every one of these instances. It's just like with religions. They use each other to promote the fear of God or whatever cult. You're a conspiracist. You're a collaborator. And what's more, the alt media are also part of the problem. If you're alt media, if you're in Trutherville, you are a propaganda mule for the MSM. You're just carrying water for the controlled opposition, which I refuse to do. So, in other words, if someone calls in and they say, oh no, this is real and that thing's really doing the stuff, it's like, no, you're a terrorist. You're a crisis actor. And if you're not getting paid by the government to do this, then why are you doing it? Why are you proselytizing? This is where it's at. It says, I don't care about what the media says unless it's about people unless it's about people I know. Well, you say that, but you exist in a world of people. Billions of people who believe what the media says. And so, yes, I don't care what they say either. However, I do care. Here's why. The general masses are misinformed. The people who tune out, who literally don't care, would be uninformed. Like, oh, I don't care, so I'm not going to pay attention, head in the sand. The problem with that is you're now defenseless. You're even in a worse position than the misinformed because you don't know what the misinformed are responding to. So the best position for me is the informed. And the informed knows what the sheep believe, knows what the media liars are telling them to believe, know what alt media are telling the attempts at free thinking, those who are trying to escape, what the alt media is telling them what to think. So, oh, you don't believe us? Well, it's because it was an inside job. So I like to know where everybody's at, whether it's Trutherville, Normieville, Woketown. I think we need to know where it's at because it's a game. And we're in this alternate reality game, like it or not. But you can't even step off the game board if you don't know all of its parts and pieces. So you have to be informed. To be on a level with those at the capstone of this pyramid. I know more about the fake news than the people who believe it. People will watch a news story, cry for a minute, and then move on to the next thing. They don't even know what they're crying about. They don't know the death tolls, the name of the families. They don't know the dates. They don't know how many people died, the address. They don't get into the weeds. They don't have the nuance. We do. But that's because we're deconstructing it, because we're informed. So they have an uninformed belief in it. We have a highly informed disbelief. Reasons to not believe. A principled position here versus this unprincipled auto-believers who are part of the biggest religion in the world. Media has supplanted religion. But there's no purpose to I guess getting emotionally entangled with any of it, and I understand if people just want to tune out. Like, once you know the score, you can tune out. I could take a vacation for 3 months, and I'm not going to be lost when I come back, because I will know that whatever I missed was fake. Unless something changes that. But there's this habit people have of believing all the news they didn't see. They just assume it all happened. It's all being fact-checked. It's all being vetted. And it's like, no, that's the big secret here. It's not. But it's such a big thing, it's hard to understand why it matters at first glance. All right, let's move on here. By the way, I have a manuscript I've been developing for about a year and a half on this subject of lies and believers versus non-believers, but specifically on the power of lying and how the people who aren't opting out of the box are all liars. Like they are by default. They become liars. They become carriers of lies. And I don't think people get called out enough on this because the word is about, oh, don't call them liars. They have perfect, pure hearts. I don't care what their intentions are. There's that old adage about the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah, they have great intentions, but the fact of it is they are liars by default. They're people of the tell lie vision. But more specifically, I've been looking at the power of lies, words, manipulation in the context of various magical philosophies. Going on back to the origin of lies and Satan as this father of lie figure, the father of lies as this antagonist to God who's about speaking truth, who speaks reality into existence, who speaks creation out of the darkness. Let there be light. Well, then you have creation, and then his antagonist comes along, and he uses lies to misdescribe it, so that whoever's perceiving it has a different concept of what it is within their mind. That schism, that bifurcation into an inconsistent reality, is the baseline gaslighting that we're all dealt with. And I liken it to the, I say bifurcated Psywar. I get that word because I think about the snake's tongue, or the tongue of, the serpent, the forked tongue. And so I think there's quite a lot to discuss around the concept of lies and the people who lie by default and what it really means. I think there are deeper implications here worth considering. Because I'm not a liar necessarily in that sense. I mean, we're talking about unwitting liars. Like, I don't know if I guess to a certain point I was an unwitting liar. And then I realized, and then I became a little more agnostic. The tendency is to go from one belief system to the other. And the problem is we're talking about untested, unverified, or unfalsifiable beliefs. And are these the same as lies? And it's a nuanced discussion. You could say, well, no, it's not the same. It's not intentional. Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get into the weeds here. How responsible are we for our own truthfulness? Just because you're born in a world of lies doesn't mean, necessarily in my view, that you're not responsible for being a clown-faced world stage liar, because it is a big clown show. They make clowns out of all of us, clowns and dupes. And if you can't admit that they painted a clown face on you and made you a dupe, and you had to take that clown face off, then you'll never get out of it. There's a bit of a hazing that you have to go through, I think, by yourself at least, when you have to recognize that, yeah, I was a sucker. Let me play this clip here. This is the warning about the concert attack.
Hopefully you saw the State Department, our embassy there, put out a notice to all Americans in Moscow to avoid any large gathering, concerts, obviously shopping malls, anything like that, just for their own safety. They should stay put where they are and stay plugged into the State Department for any additional updates and information. I'm afraid that's really all I have on that.
Okay, so we knew. You should have marked your calendars. 322, super day for a PSYOP. Thank you, Duas Impera. Gifted 5 memberships. We have 5 new blue wrenches being handed out. Stephen Granger, RW. Ice Grills, Harmon Walker. Redacted, Bigley. Newest initiates into the Blue Wrench Lodge. Appreciate it. And those of you who are in, I'm already uploading video content. Last night I uploaded a short video, a clip. I found this stuffed penguin toy at a thrift store, a plush penguin, and I decided to make it into a cyborg. And so I was finding parts and pieces and adding. So I put together a short clip there. You can look it up on the channel, but I will be doing more video content specifically for the Infinite Plane Society YouTube channel. And this will all be for members. So again, I appreciate all of you who are taking part in this and keeping this thing moving forward. And we're not slowing down, nor are we backing up from our positions, because our positions are rooted in fact and objective reality. We have really just established what I would consider to be a methodology for media deconstruction that doesn't exist outside of this. The Trutherville, Alex Jones, InfoWars type deconstruction is always this. It's real or it's a false flag. It's real or it's an inside job, meaning it's real or it's real plus. It's real and this. They never subtract. Skepticism is a subtractive position, subtracting the things you can't verify and suspending judgment. Yet, the people who watched this on the news yesterday believed it yesterday. I don't have enough information. If you have enough information right now to say this was real, raise your hand. If you have something to corroborate with the reports, please let us know. But I don't have any more information than anyone else deeply looking into this does. We're all drawing from the same source, but we're having these wildly different conclusions. Now, I have to play this. This is incredible. This is a clip from some movie, and I don't want to get a copyright strike, so I'm going to have to break this up into a couple segments. It's a conversation with Will Smith's character in some movie talking to someone else about subliminal manipulation. And interestingly here, he makes the point that the person doesn't have to be cognizant of what is being placed in front of their eyes. They're just taking it all in, and they're becoming increasingly suggestible. And in this specific case, he's talking about how they had wanted to influence someone to make a decision about player number 55. So they had 55s put everywhere within his field of view. Now you would think, why does it matter? He's not seeing it. Well, he is seeing it, and that's what Smith's character makes a point of saying. And I've been saying this for some time, that your subconscious takes in all the programming. It doesn't matter if you consciously recognize it or not. It's in there, and they can program you this way. Let me play this clip.
We've been telling him all day. From the moment he left his hotel room, we've been priming him.
Okay, so she asks, how did you know he was going to pick number 55?
How did you know who he was gonna pick?
We told him to. We've been telling him all day.
Now, he's going through how they primed this individual with the number 55. Like in real life, putting subliminal prompts.
The moment he left his hotel room, we've been priming him, programming his subconscious. He's been seeing the number 55 all day long. On the elevator, in the lobby, even the stick pin on the doormat.
Everywhere he goes, he's seeing 55. It's planted everywhere, but he goes deeper. He even goes on to find the phonetic value of the word woo, and then connects it to the song by the Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil, where he said, you'll hear it.
Yeah, and it's not only what he sees, it's what he hears. The Mandarin word for 5 is woo. There are 124 woo-woos in Sympathy for the Devil. Now, he's not registering it, but it's all there. So when he picks up those binoculars...
So this individual, speaks Mandarin, and he's hearing 55, 55, 55 in the background of this song as he's making his pick, and he chooses player 55. Now, I don't know what movie this is. If someone can let me know. Signs and symbols rule the world, not words nor laws. Confucius. Yeah, if anyone can let me know the name of that movie, I'd be happy to go check it out. It looks like Margot Robbie, Will Smith. Shouldn't be hard to find. Yeah, this is the Daily Deprogramming, or the Daily Deprime. We are actively engaged in what you could consider to be cult deprogramming, which is a thing. I've been a part of various cults, not as a brainwashed cult member, but I was aware that I was joining what could be considered a cult, and I understood cult mindsets. The love bombing. In fact, I've experienced this. One of the first things that happens when you join one of these clubs is everybody shakes your hand, everybody loves you, you're the newest member, everybody asks you questions. So if you're alone, isolated, and now suddenly you're thrust into a place where you have a group of friends waiting for you, it is very attractive. It's very much something that I guess incentivizes you to stay a part of it. But then later, once you're a part of it, and you're washing dishes and you're just part of the maintenance, now you don't get the same type of response. So you fight harder to get it back. And all cults do this. They devalue who you were as an individual, and now you have to become more like the group. It's a dynamic that exists, and you can't just walk out of the cult. Most people can't. They have to, because their sense of identity has been somewhat shattered. They have to build that back up. There's a process to escaping a cult. And I think in many ways, the mainstream media is in fact, I would say, the world state church. But it has put people into a consensus, a hive mind, a cult mindset. It is an end times cult. That aspect of it is undeniable. They specifically, like, the more of a media literalist you are. I mean, you know, like what Bible literalists are. If it's written in the Bible to the word, it is true. Well, there are media literalists today. And those who go by the accepted worldview that the establishment media promotes will believe that we are in the end times for a lot of reasons. Mostly the Republicans. The film is called Focus from 2015. Thank you for that. This is where it's at. The movie is called Focus. Selena says British trickster Darren Brown presented a similar stunt to the Focus film. Well, they've been doing this for a long time with predictive programming, well, since the inception of media. So if we look back at 60 years of predictive programming preparing us for Donald Trump in his final form. Donald Trump is Biff Tannen. We've been prepared for the Donald Trump we're about to see. Antichrist Donald. It's all there. We were prepared for decades for the Twin Towers to go down. The decades of zombie movies were all preparing us for lockdowns and quarantine. The themes are all there with specificity. I mean, look at Daybreakers, vampire movie from 2009, and it's like 10 years later in the future, which would be 2019, and it says it all started with a bat, like a vampire bat plague. The movie even has the vampires in control who are addicted to drinking human blood from people who have been terrified to death, terrified before death, so they have like fear in the blood. But predictive programming has been a facet of media from the beginning because that's what media is for. It's programming. And they use the entertainment to program you for what they're going to do in the news. And you're absorbing the stuff your entire life. So we saw something happen on TV that we had subconsciously already witnessed in many different forms. It was there, attached to all the right messaging that they would need us to accept that would go along with it, so we would go with their story and engage ourselves in this movie, in this alternate reality game. Dewis and Paris says 28 Days Later is pretty decent as far as zombie movies go. Yeah, I mean, hilarious premise. 28 Days Later. And by the way, the director is the guy who did Civil War, which is coming out next month. But it's a post-apocalyptic, and it has to do with, I think, chimpanzees being forced to watch the MSM until they turn violent. And then their violence becomes contagious. A highly contagious, aggression-inducing violence called the rage virus, unleashed after an infected chimpanzee is freed from his cage. It spreads, resulting in societal collapse. Now, this is fascinating for a couple of reasons, specifically because of the narrative that started emerging with a lot of these shooters where they're catching a rage virus. They go onto X, they fall into a Twitter bubble, and they come out full of rage, and they go shoot a bunch of people up. That was Robert Card's story. They say the same thing with Discord. In fact, these terrorists in Moscow supposedly got their orders on Telegram. But the concept here is mind viruses making people violent. Sanitize the internet, lock down the internet, make people wear mind masks before they communicate online. You see what they're doing? The virus of the mind viruses. Mind viruses are being talked about by Elon Musk all the time. The woke mind virus. They're getting people acclimated to the idea that ideology can be caught like a sickness, that you can catch it from someone. You hear it, you catch it. Which you do, like people who are media literalists, they see it on the screen, they believe it. If you have mind aids, you have no mental immune system, yeah, obviously. But because most people have no mental immune system, the powers that be need to censor the internet so they can monopolize what they infect everybody with. Alright, moving on. Phil, Fake News Phil, I spoke with him, JLB, and Fakeologist recently. He did an excellent breakdown of this, and one of the things he remarked, and I noticed this as well, you see the event in the footage, but it doesn't really begin. The action doesn't begin until pretty much everybody leaves the room.
People leaving the concert. This is in Moscow. And you see no blood. Nobody's injured. This is nobody is running in panic or terror. And this is it was some kind of a rock concert here in Moscow. And people, just like Bataclan, just like the Las Vegas shooting, it was also fake.
And you know what Fake News Phil makes a point here is that it's essentially a closed movie set once they flush everybody out, and those people who are still there are just inadvertently drafted, like unpaid crisis actors. I mean, look, if I'm in one of these events and I see a bunch of stuff going down, I'm going to get a check. I'm going to get a check from the GAG, the Government Actors Guild. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I got FaceTime. I think you heard me scream. That should count. I'm like, I'm not going to walk away from that thing unpaid. Like, I have respect for all my paid crisis actors out there. I have respect for paid shills. If you're paid a handsome income to just scare people about clouds and complain about chemtrails all day, good for you. Now, if you're doing this for free, if you're just a propaganda mule for the alt media, yeah, I have very little respect for that. In fact, I have open disdain for unpaid crisis actors. Like Alex Stein, for example, I kind of give him crap because he was crying over the Uvalde thing, but you know he's getting paid for his gig, and he's a reality TV star, and he signed an NDA, so it's like, okay. Let's see what else we have here. Angle of Elevation says the rage in zombies is similar to a symptom of rabies, with all the manipulation to do with the V. I'm sure they are working on making that a reality. I'm sure they're not. One thing that never happens. The fake never leads to real. It never goes kinetic. The sky's not going to fall, and it's not getting worse. It's all good news from here on out. Sorry to say it for those of you who are, disappointed in this. Spoiler alert, good news. The worst things you can imagine don't even exist. And what's more, even the thing that they're doing in the labs, like the rage thing, don't really even matter in that sense, because the whole point of it was to introduce a mental concept, a construct. The godless transhumanists kneeling at the altar of MSM and believing in scientism with their entire being, those are the target audience for this, which is a replacement for sin. They don't believe in sin, you give them the V. And the people they don't like are the carriers of it. They don't want to get cured from it. They don't want the injectable Eucharist. It's a construct. They don't believe in God, give them Gaia. They don't believe in heaven, give them space. These are all replacements. So in other words, the V thing's as real as the flood, as real as Gaia. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. These are constructs that are used to organize society into the sheeple and the priest class. And the sheeple are all dirty and need to be saved. And those who won't be saved are now enemies of those who are saved. It's the perpetual war. And it is definitely a new religion. Duas in Paris says, I'll have to check it out. I heard Fake Phil the first time with JLB and Tim. Yes, and he did have some great takes. And I don't have to agree with someone to endorse them. I just have to like their thought process, or we agree on certain things. I don't vet everyone's opinions. Hank G says, do you think the recent squatting epidemic making the news rounds is part of the world stage play or somewhat legit? Seems like an extension of the border crisis. Interesting. And I have seen that. I've seen squatters. I've seen one individual on the news squatting in a multi-million-dollar home. Doesn't pay rent, goes to the next place, till the neighborhood throws him out. But I could see the squatting feeding into the class warfare because the communists don't believe in private property. Isabel N says the V cards was to get you used to showing your status. It's about destruction of privacy. See, they don't want you to have private property. They don't want you to have privacy in your own mind. That's why they need to know what mind viruses you have. I saw something about Google trying to get access to what websites people visited or what YouTube videos they watched. Did you see that? I'm trying to do a subpoena to see if certain people had watched these videos. Let me find it. Here we go. Google was ordered to identify people who watched certain YouTube videos. Authorities reportedly ordered Google to reveal the identities of some of the viewers. I'll get to this, but I want to say this first. They want to know what's in your mind. They want to know what's in your blood. They want to know what's in your pockets. They want to know what's in your underwear and your shoes. You see the pretext, 9/11? Now we can use the body scanners. We can pat you down. Fast forward 19 years. Now we need to know what's in your blood. Well, that's not enough now. Now we need to know what's in your mind because you might have bad intentions. So privacy is increasingly shown to be a threat to society. That we have to get rid of privacy. We need total transparency at every level. And I think that the privacy that we're seeing erode, the privacy here, your browser history, for example. Well, now the state has a compelling interest to know what's in your browser history. Authorities reportedly ordered Google to reveal the identities of some YouTube users. You apparently don't have to do anything illegal for law enforcement to ask for your Google data. They asked for the names, addresses, numbers, and users' activities of those who watched certain videos between January 1st and 8th, 2023, according to unsealed documents viewed by Forbes. People who watched those videos while they weren't even logged into an account weren't safe either because they got IP addresses. Fascinating. Now, this may have had to do with some kind of Bitcoin or money laundering. I'm not exactly sure the pretext, but just the development there is interesting in itself. Nicotrama says their end goal with all their big operations is the restriction of movement. Oh, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I think airplanes are under attack. The airlines. With the DEI stuff, DEI has nothing to do with standards. They're not lowering standards. It's a ridiculous premise, and it's also kind of it's a misunderstanding. I mean, yeah, it goes against meritocracy in the purest sense, but the standards are the same. But you have all these narratives coming from the right that, oh, the planes are falling from the sky, parts are falling because they lowered hiring standards. The left has already been against planes forever. Trains were derailing last year. And the trains were mentioned for being under-regulated, and carrying toxic waste and crashing all the time. But we're consistently seeing this. Go back to when Greta spoke to the UN. Didn't she take a rowboat because she didn't want to create any sort of discomfort for Mother Gaia, her god? So she instead, eschewed the planes. She's like, no, we don't take planes. Bad for Gaia. But planes have been a target for a long time. Even the planes of the elite. The only people who should be allowed to fly, according to the environmentalists, are the mega wealthy, so they can fly to the climate conferences every year and tell the little people how to live. Those are the only people. You know, it's kind of interesting. You look at someone like Bill Gates, who justifies flying around the world. He justifies his own carbon footprint because he's doing something for the problem. Then you got like Kenneth Copeland, one of the richest, probably the richest televangelist in the world. And he's like, yeah, well, Jesus needs him to fly around the world. So he's got like a $4 million jet. Is it more than that? Kenneth Copeland? How much is his jet worth? Wealthy televangelist explains his fleet of private jets. $21 million Falcon 7X. But he defends his lavish lifestyle. He says if he flew commercial, he would have to stop like 60% of what he's doing. So he can justify it. He's saving souls. But we're not supposed to travel. It's for the elite. And besides, why would you need to travel? Aren't they going to give you Oculus? The metaverse is meant to replace the meatverse. And I just realized on the equinox a few days ago, on the 19th, I was on a walk and I checked my health app. I'd never checked it before. And it actually tracks how many steps you take every day. So I was like, wait a minute, I took 16,000 steps today. I scrolled back and I scrolled back, and I was like, wow, I could actually see during which periods in my life where I was more active. I was very active in 2022. I was walking easily 5 miles a day. And I've been about half that or a third of that since. But they track every step. And they've already brought up rate limiting when it comes to tweets. It's just a matter of time until people say, okay, you know what? You shouldn't really be walking more than 3,000 steps a day. Gaia does not approve of that. How many breaths are you taking? How many heartbeats? And they're probably monitoring all of the above. By the way, if you believe in chemtrails and you fly on airplanes, you're complicit in murder. You're complicit in genocide even. One of my favorite chemdoozlers, major alarmist, he's always screaming at the overcast skies. Genocide, it's world genocide. I'm like, well, if you fly on one plane for Thanksgiving, you can no longer say you aren't part of it. We're going to have our chemtrail Nuremberg. We're going to have our tribunals. Every pilot, every passenger that knew about chemtrails and didn't do anything to stop the plane. Nicotrama says the controllers controlled the gasoline prices. If they wanted to, they could pretty much stop our movements. $25 gallon gas would do that. Oh yeah, peak oil. I personally don't care about the gas prices. I live in a 1-minute city. I chose it this way because I assumed in the future things could go in a certain direction with the acquiescence of the public, and I'll have to go with it. I don't want to be inconvenienced. Cygirl posted this in Gilded. That's why all the visual media evidence will soon be useless. They have the whole audience playing whack-a-mole all day long on every image they broadcast. The signal-to-noise ratio will attenuate to nothing because it's all fake all the time. Informational nihilism will be the outcome of so much needless fakery. Yeah, this has been evident since 10.7. This is a problem. But this is a problem they have engineered. The sea of irrelevance. That's why I describe what we are it's a raft. When penguins amass on the waters, they form a raft. And we are floating atop the sea of irrelevance, where most people are drowning. They're in it. And we need this raft because the zone is being purposefully flooded with disinformation to make it impossible for any one person to have a coherent view of what's going on. The reason we do is we have a think tank. There are many of us watching and paying attention and maintaining a continuity of awareness. The public doesn't have this. They live in a perpetual now, and it's molding from moment to moment, changing. Their whole universe is like Mandela affected, reality fluid. And here we are, the only objectivists in the world. All right, we have a tweet from Aussie Cossack. Putin grants immunity from prosecution for criminal acts to his soldiers just hours after video of Moscow Crocus City Hall terrorist getting his ear cut off during interrogations goes viral. So the story here is it wasn't ISIS, it was one of Putin's, and he just got caught because one of his guys talked after having his ear cut off, being forced to eat it, and now he's granting him immunity. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, if this was the case, it would already have been done. They knew 2 weeks ago this was going to happen. Everybody in the know had marked this on their calendars. But this is one of these clues they planned to tell the right and the conspiracy theorists that, yep, this was an inside job. Here's the picture. Russian troops hack off Moscow attack suspect's ear and feed it to him. This is forced auto-cannibalism. Too bad they didn't have that 33-year-old Russian Satanist. They could have fed it to him in front of the guy. That would have been intimidating. If somebody ripped off my ear and fed it to the guy in front of me, I would be, and no less a cannibal Satanist, I would be pretty much willing to say anything. Pardon here we go. Another pardon. Putin pardons satanic cannibal Nikolai Ogolobiak, convicted murderer, 33. Satanist cannibal sent to Storm Z unit. So he's in the Storm Z unit, like World War Z. Putin pardons Satanist killer. Anyway, this guy, Nikolai, killed 4 teenagers and ate their body parts. Again, this is against the backdrop of cannibalism worldwide. I think there's a guy in Los Angeles who saw someone get run over by a train yesterday, and he ate the guy's leg, and there's a video of it. He got arrested. Then you have this ear being eaten. Then you have Haiti eating itself. But what's up with the ear being cut off? Is there a deeper meaning to it? According to the Bible, Simon Peter was armed with a sword and he cut off a servant's ear to prevent the arrest of Jesus, and that was Malchus. So there's that story. In the 2004 film by Mel Gibson, Passion of the Christ, Malchus is represented as a member of the temple guard, and Jesus heals the wounded ear. And then he converts to Christianity. So if you haven't seen Passion of the Christ, it was played by then 33-year-old Jim Caviezel, but I spell it with a Q. Jim Caviezel was 33 at the time and played Jesus. He came back, saved the children, stuff. He's a big QAnon hero. But is there a significance to the ear? I mean, we're approaching Holy Week. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. There's something going on with somebody's ear. Now check this out. This is a notice from YouTube. This reiterates what Cygirl was saying. To follow YouTube's policy, you are required to tell us if your content is altered or synthetic and seems real. If it, quote, seems real, like who decides this? This includes realistic sounds or visuals made with AI. Label your video yes, if so. Does your video contain the following content? Content that alters footage of a real event or place. Generates realistic looking scenes that didn't actually occur. Makes a real person appear to say something they didn't say or do. So they're relying on content creators to market fake if it's fake. Because people don't know. People don't know the difference between real or fake. We are reality compromised and visually illiterate as a society. I've been saying this for several years, that mainstream society is in a dark age. They are visually illiterate, and if they're not told something is fake, they won't know. This is bad. This is a philosophical crisis. This is the end result of mind aids, just dumping all kinds of stuff into people's minds, not allowing them to develop critical thinking skills, no mental immune system. Now it needs to be designated real or fake. That's why I call it the desert of the designated real. I'm like, you're on your own. If you can't tell, I could care less. I understand how this works. I'm a skeptic. Like, what you need isn't years of experience in video editing, like I have. You don't need years of Photoshop. You don't need special effects. You don't need to be a movie buff. All you need to see through the media matrix is skepticism, meaning you suspend judgment on whether you agree that something is real or not until you have evidence to support it. Which means you're left not believing a lot. Lauren Witzke on X tweeted this. Captured terrorist involved in the Russian mall attack reveals he was offered 500,000 rubles to carry out the shooting. Someone on Telegram deposited the money and told him where to go. Now again, 500,000 rubles, according to Cupstar, is 5,427 US dollars. What would you do for $5,400? And of course, Telegram. Couldn't be Reddit. This is how you know the political purpose of the PSYOP. Every one of these PSYOPs has a partisan agenda. That was one of my big wake-up calls when I realized the reason why the right, the reason why Armalite and all the gun manufacturers and the 2A people aren't going to call out any of the fake events is because they're part of it. That's why. Armalite paid out $73 million. You think that you're going to lose 73 million and you're not going to look into it a little bit that maybe you have some kind of way out. No, they're part of it. And what you have here with this particular psyop, I think these are just, kind of clues, is the fact that it was someone radicalized on Telegram means it's not a leftist, meaning that this will be deemed to be a false flag. And we'll see. It's somehow going to be used to somehow aid Putin, most likely. All right, moving on. Special forces directly across from the Crocus. We already looked at that. They conducted a drill simulating this before. Alexander Buzz says, maybe a side note, maybe not. But the first time the phrase fentanyl was introduced as a mystery substance to a larger audience, quote, the Russians used the most powerful narcotic known to man. Interesting side note. I'll take a look at that. What do we have here? A new technology called OmniAlert uses AI to detect guns on school campuses. Using AI. Interesting. Oh, okay. Using AI to detect fake shootings in North Carolina. Posted by Violet. New comment on my BitChute. FlyGuy24 said, this is good news, means no one died. I prefer people not being dead. This is great. See, that's the attitude. If you're disappointed that nobody's dead, then what are you? What does that make you? Corpse clutcher? If you're offended at the notion that nobody died. But a corpse clinger, if you're holding on to a old worldview based upon a fundamental misunderstanding of media. Synchromorpheus posted this. This is from the Super Bowl Kansas City parade shooting. You had two number 15s side by side. It looks like ISIS. And then the Crocus building has a big sign on it that says Vegas. And the event did have many similarities to the Vegas event. All right, moving on. So here's what I wrote down for my list. We have suggestions of simunition. It was predicted. 322 Skull and Bones Day. Zelensky had remarked that the people of Russia must feel this, meaning the people would be targeted. Suggestions of asymmetrical warfare. There was comments that Putin would be subject to nasty surprises. And we've pretty much experienced more Scooby-Doo justice. They solved the mystery right away. Evolvement said, 322 never disappoints. No, it's like a holiday. We have a few auto hoaxer holidays, like 321. We all ought to stay up late and just see what the PSYOP fair is going to bring. I mean, every year it's like this holiday for the Skull and Bones Society. And that's why I called this live stream the 322 Ritual Review. We're just reviewing the ritual. Really one of the best ones since the King Super in Boulder. That was a really super PSYOP. So many tie-ins. I love that one because it ties in Christchurch, ties into this other shooting that was going on in Georgia at the time. But the MO or the motivation for the King Super shooting was retaliation for Christchurch. So it was a Muslim killing white people because a white supremacist, killed Muslims in two mosques. Fascinating tie-ins there. This is the article I had mentioned earlier. This is posted by Colin Rugg. Just in, California man arrested for eating a severed leg, which he took from a pedestrian who was struck by a train. This is in Wasco, California. According to the police, a 27-year-old, Rosendo Tellez, removed a leg from an Amtrak station. Just like a month ago, I heard a number of the typical voices on the right, propagandists, saying that there were cannibals from Haiti coming on boats to America. Like cannibals were invading. Cannibal gangs. Yeah, here we go. Rolling Stones did an article about this. Ian Miles Chung repeatedly tweeting that cannibal gangs are... They use the term cannibal army. Even Musk said cannibal army. Elon Musk and fellow fearmongers have cooked up the most ridiculous immigration panic yet. Funny. Did any of you watch Elon Musk's interview with Don Lemon? Nick Katrama says, you're over 1,000 subs and your channel has not been nuked. Do you think it's because of the lawsuit? I do. I do. I'm not complaining. But I don't think it's a coincidence that we have a lawsuit pending. We're looking at the next significant date is the 13th of May. But it's all worked. It's going to work out, I believe. I'm just doing what I have to do as far as following the process. And I understand the games that they're going to play. Google, YouTube, same company, but they're like, oh no, you have to sue, like, I sued them first here, and they're like, no, you have to sue us here because we're YouTube. So I go to where they are, and they're like, oh no, we're not YouTube, we're Google. You got to sue us here. So I sue them there, and they're like, well, actually, you're going to have to go to this county. So they're playing these games, no big deal, nothing changes. It just gives me more time to refine my arguments and add more causes of action and dig deeper. But the main thing is this: the judge, the other side, they have all acknowledged that a significant crime was committed in the, I guess what you would call the collusion, unwitting collusion between YouTube's legal and the other defendant. I won't spend a lot of time on it now because I will be out there in Redwood City, California when it happens in May, and so you'll get all the details at the time. Turbo Nerbro says, how do the cannibal gangs not get Kuru? Yeah, there are symptoms of Kuru that have caused many to think that perhaps there is something to Pizzagate. Hillary Clinton's laugh, that's a Kuru laugh. Aries 1 says, how late am I? We started live streaming about 75 minutes ago. Angle of Elevation says, Mary R says the eclipse will bring earthquakes and devastation. But I heard the day will be overcast. So we'll need to put the apocalypse on hold for another 300 years. Yeah, wouldn't that be something? The apocalypse stopped by chemtrails. They blocked it. They blocked the sun. Now, I want Mary R. and all the others who are making predictions about the eclipse to be on notice that on 4/9, if there's no apocalypse, we're going to be blocking all of them. I'm going to go through a live stream. On a live stream, I'll go through my Twitter feed, and I'll go through every one of these Gematria prophets that said it's going down on 4/8 because this, this, and this. And I want to determine if I'm correct in my assessment that most of the false prophets are unwittingly, and some of them are consciously doing it, and this would also apply to people forecasting sports. They're using what's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. And it's a clever way to make it appear that you're always right. This is where it's at, says, is Pizzagate still a thing? It is. There's a huge group of people who still believe in it. But it's really just revamped satanic panic. And you can't separate Pizzagate from the alt-right at the very top. I mean, it's Jack Posobiec really got that started. But it's all just a way of bringing people into the conspiracy realm that aligns with the political right. And we're not conspiracy theorists here. The conspiracy theories have been politicized, and they all do lead into a political conclusion. They do lead you to the political horseshoe. G says, every person or average person on the street prancing about the upcoming eclipse. Yeah, they're shutting down schools. They're getting the National Guard out. Conspiracy theories are running wild. I don't have any sort of predictions about anything other than noting that Leave the World Behind had a map of the United States with an X over it. This creates an X over America. And in the movie, it focuses on friends. It's part of the subtext. And Chandler Bing's birthday, Matthew Perry, his character, Chandler Bing, his birthday is on 4/8. Matthew Perry's death day, 10/28, happened to be a lunar eclipse. So there's some eclipse connections referenced in the movie indirectly in that way, and then the map would seem to reiterate it. It all spells death for America. Oswaldo says, has Crow 777 still been spraying vinegar at the chemtrails. I follow his channel on Rofkin. Great content. A lot of people fall for this trick. And you don't have to be a witting liar, or you don't have to be a deceiver to use deception. You can just be using a methodology that allows you to trick people unwittingly, is what I'm saying. Not everybody does it intentionally. So you look at the sky and it's clear. A plane flies over, leaves a trail, then it rains. Yeah, A came before B, so therefore A caused B. People fall for that. It's easy. Sky was overcast. I boiled a cauldron of vinegar in my front yard. Now the sky is clear. I caused that. That's what you call faulty causality. And I think he might have fallen for faulty causality with the vinegar thing. Because you could boil water, you could boil vinegar, you could do a rain dance, you could just sit there and stare. The clouds are going away regardless. Taking credit for it requires misattribution of cause to the effect. It's a simple thing to fall for. All right, let's move on. And look, he didn't originate that. That's actually not new at all. You know who started that? Ron Paul's followers. Ron Paul's followers for years were actually using spray bottles and spraying vinegar at airplanes. This is back in as far back as like 2010. Now check this out. Ron supporters spray vinegar at the sky to kill chemtrails. Vinegar wielding chemtrail lady, forgotten hero. Vinegar dissipates chemtrails, who knew? Ron supporters spray vinegar at the sky to disperse chemtrails. To me, this is a psyop designed to make Ron Paul supporters look crazy. And Ron Paul supporters are just those who don't fall for the establishment left or right. It's like the default for free thinkers, which is now Trutherville. And I think that these ideas are fed to them to make them look crazy, for no other reason. Angle of Elevation said, I heard Jaron will be setting up a vinegar experiment to see if it works. Oh, come on. Okay. Dude, there's a good reason to follow along with this, because if he does it, he will see that it works. Then it'll be a test. Will he be capable of admitting that he fell for a logical fallacy? If you can't admit that you can dupe yourself, that you can be tricked, that you're trickable, there's no helping you. You're no longer a seeker. Like magic shows. You go to magic shows because you know you could be tricked. And when you can't figure out a trick, you don't assume it was magic. You just assume you don't know how it worked. But my point of it is, we are all trickable, we're exploitable. Mass media mind war takes full advantage of this. And we have to recognize when we're being tricked so we can reverse engineer it. But many, many truthers are still being tricked into spraying vinegar at the sky. Cupstar says, was it malt vinegar or white vinegar or balsamic? I guess we should be really sciencey about it and burn 3 buckets or boil 3 buckets of it. We'll need 3 people to do it. One of you will use malt vinegar, one will use white vinegar, one will use balsamic, and someone else needs to just boil water. And we'll see who clears the chemtrails first. And then we'll have another group. Maybe we can get Ronnie and Johnny to pray the chemtrails away, because there are people who pray them away. Some believe that the airplanes are actually angels and demons fighting in the sky, and that you're looking at some kind of demonic. You can look it up. Demonic chemtrails are a thing, and there are people who pray at them. And the prayer often precedes the skies becoming clearer. So the only conclusion is, therefore, the prayers did it, right? Okay, let's get back on topic. We were talking about the guy eating the leg, the guy eating his own ear. James Carville was having a conversation with Anderson Cooper, and he said that Biden needs to have others do his, quote, wet work on Trump. to, quote, take a guy out. Wet work. What does wet work mean? Is that what I think it is? Wet work is used as a euphemism for murder or assassination. The term alludes to spilling blood. James Carville appeared on CNN's Anderson Cooper 360, where he discussed Biden slamming Trump, and he advises Biden to have others do his wet work. Nothing to see here. Just James Carville, who once said that he would punch you in the face if you don't have a mask, now suggesting that somebody kill Trump. And this is what they would call stochastic terror if it was the other side. If you had a couple MAGAs like Steve Bannon and Jack Posobiec saying somebody should do wet work on Joe, they would call that stochastic terror. They would say it's a threat. But here they are. You're a proponent of the president, and all the spokespeople in the campaign need to do this. Let me find it. Here it is. I'll play the clip. But Anderson says it sounds like a mob hit. After Carville says there are a lot of people who would do what I call the wet work. So even Anderson,
proponent of the president and all his spokespeople in the campaign, doing that more and more.
Yeah, not so much him. I mean, be candid, Anderson. President Biden is not the best attack politician I've ever seen in my life, and I'll leave it at that. But there are a lot of people to do what I call, quote, the wet work, unquote. And I think
like
he
a
needs
mob
to
hit.
stay sort of a. Yeah, well, it's kind of, but it's a paid TV.
okay, well, maybe there's a fuller context, and that's not what he means, but these are the same individuals who are crying about Trump saying bloodbath. Trump said bloodbath, therefore there's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, this is, again, just typical media hypocrisy. Michelle Castor says, the ear reminds me of the scene in Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, actually, that would be closer, because in the Bible with Simon Peter, they were chopping off the guy's ear for something else, but the Reservoir Dogs was an interrogation. So there may be something to that. Ghost army members who deceived Nazis with battlefield ruses in World War II are given the Congressional Medals of Honor. Psyopsicles posted. Just a day after you posted that inflatable tank, they're getting medals now for their blow-up dolls. Thank you for that. And yeah, apparently, many of those who were involved in inflatable tanks to trick the Nazis are getting awards over it. With inflatable tanks, costume, uniforms, and acting, the military units that became known as the Ghost Army outwitted the Nazis. Believe that if you want. The fact of it is, both sides use inflatables. Both sides use actors. Both sides use costumes. So who are they tricking? Is Ukraine tricking Russia with their inflatable rocket launchers? Is Russia tricking them with their dummy missiles? Who's tricking who? My point is that the mass media is perpetrating a deception to trick the public. And the public is the target of the inflatable tanks, not the Nazis. It was never about tricking the Nazis. It is about providing content for the media to elaborate on the lies. Like, what is it? William Randolph Hearst said, you provide the pictures, I'll provide the war. And we've seen this before in recent times. We see actors, we see not inflatable, but empty tents, empty hospitals. What's the difference? These are decoy operations. Dewis in Paris says, it wasn't really an interrogation. Mr. Blonde didn't care what the cop knew. He was going to torture him anyway. Yeah, I thought it was sort of just a gratuitous display of violence and demonstrating his sociopathy, or perhaps psychopathy. It was pretty psychotic. Quentin Tarantino, by the way, is a huge liar. I remember he was speaking to BLM in 2020 about how the police in LA are terrible and they're pigs and they threw him in jail. You know, Tarantino. But turned out that he didn't go to jail. He lied about it for street cred. Watch cop-hating Quentin Tarantino lie about going to jail. Police supported. Oh, this is it. New York Post claims Tarantino lied about jail. Bogus jail time. I was in jail 3 different times. I don't know. It's been disputed. New York Post claims he was lying about it. Faking jail. Almost as bad as faking swatting, which is a thing now. Faking death threats, having powder sent to yourself. Aries 1 says he's also a pervert. Yeah, that's probably true as well. I don't really care for his movies. I like film, I like movies. However, some of them I just study because of how relevant they are to the collective psyche. Even if it's garbage, sometimes you have to go there. Frank Merce is known to steal film ideas. Interestingly, Kanye West, Ye, claims that Tarantino and Jamie Foxx stole Django Unchained from him. Fascinating all around when you get into the subtext of Jamie Foxx, Django Unchained, Nat Turner, Haiti, that whole thing, which might have inspired Nat Turner, whether that story's real or not. But anyway, the whole thing is Django Unchained was played by Jamie Foxx. It was kind of a Nat Turner type situation. And Jamie Foxx then attached himself to BLM and became a hugely prominent celebrity with this kind of new civil rights, starting with Trayvon Martin. And he came out with a Trayvon Martin shirt. Anyway, without going too far into the weeds here, when Django Unchained was out in the movie theaters, Christopher Dorner, a police officer in LA, claimed he wasn't getting promoted because of systemic racism, and he went on a killing spree. And during his killing spree on CNN, Mark Lamont Hill cheered him on and said, "This is like a real-life Django Unchained." Meanwhile, Christopher Dorner goes into a cabin where he is then incinerated. So, 33-year-old Christopher Dorner burnt to ashes, incinerated in a cabin after his killing spree. Alright, let's see what else we have here. Going through my notes. Kate Middleton. Didn't want to spend too much time on this. I'll try to avoid it. Is she dead? Is she not dead? Well, she released a video and everybody's saying it's AI. And it appears to be so. And sites that are able to tell you if something is AI or not are identifying it as such. Okay, we have some war room talk from Steve Bannon. And this is suggesting that the terror attack was botched, it was a false flag, and it was meant to be blamed on ISIS, but now we're finding out that this was in fact probably some of Zelensky's guys, and this is all part of what Victoria Nuland said would be a series of nasty surprises coming for Putin.
Yeah, Steve, it's very interesting. Thanks so much for having me on. Thanks so much for being here doing War Room today. This situation, number one, this is the worst terror attack in Russia since the Beslan school massacre all the way back 2004. That was Chechen members of...
Okay, 2004, which means the worst attack since almost 20 years ago. And this is Jack Pizzagate, or Jack Poe, parody of extremism, doesn't believe any of what he says. And he almost single-handedly kicked off Pizzagate by going into Comet Pizza. Now he's involved in fomenting a new satanic panic, which he even says would be a good thing, that we need it. And the reason why this is worth pointing out is that the left doesn't believe in God or sin. But they believe in the pandemic, the virus. They believe in the need to sanitize in a different way. Whereas on the right, the trad right, as Posavec calls it, they're still stuck in moral panic and the real belief in sin, but they don't believe in the new modern construct. So the satanic panic and the pandemic, these are parallel psyops, one for the left, one for the right. The left fears the right fears the left, but for two different reasons. They fear social contagion and sin and wickedness and leading us to hell, possibly God sending another flood. Whereas the other side's like, they're going to kill us all, they're not V'd, and their carbon footprints are going to trigger Gaia into killing us all. So it's part of the box, the propaganda box, and the bifurcated mind war. It's moral panic versus pandemic panic. Old construct of sin, or the old sin, the archaic sin, with this new iteration of it. But anyway, Posobiec is instrumental in this particular agenda, and he also highlights a lot of the more recent shooters that are coming from the left. Because the right didn't really care about shooters who were radicalized on 4chan and Discord, because those are their own guys. But once the shooters started coming out of Reddit, targeting Christian schools, now they care. But again, these individuals are all part of the system, and their base assumption is everything is real as reported, except it's a different who behind it.
Of Al-Qaeda, aligned with Al-Qaeda, that perpetuated that attack. Now today, or I guess last night I should say, what we get out of Russia, this concert hall that's attacked within a 2-week window after the U.S. State Department specifically put out a cable to Americans residing not just across Russia, but in Moscow, where they directly stated extremists are planning to attack a concert hall. They specifically use that. Usually a State Department, when they put out warnings, it doesn't have that level.
Now, there might have been other ways to have determined this was going to happen. You could have just been watching Netflix. You don't have to listen to the State Department. You don't have to watch the news to know what's coming. You just got to watch Netflix. That's pretty much how I've been doing this. In fact, let me play this clip. This is a movie I watched last night, or a part of it. It's called All the Old Knives. I'm sure it's totally unrelated, but this was recommended to me on Amazon. I hit play, so I'm watching All the Old Knives, and there's a conversation here about some kind of, it seems like a inside job, government shooting some theater in Russia.
They sent you directly to Moscow. You witnessed the Nordost siege. Chechen militants took over the Dubrovka theater. Russians pumped gas into the theater and went in. Killed nearly all the terrorists. Well over 100 hostages, too.
Killed well over 100 hostages.
That kind of thing never leaves you, does it?
Moscow was brutal.
Moscow was brutal. Anyway, this could be nothing, but it just coincidentally I'm watching TV, and this is how it works. You can't escape the messaging. I turn on the TV, watch some random show, it's recommended to me, and it mentions 100 plus people dying in a theater in Moscow and it being brutal. Coincidence? Then we have this. One of the IDs from one of the terrorists went pretty viral, and I helped with that. I spread this as well. But I knew at first glance that this is actually Matt Hyde. Whenever there's an event, a sensitive event, somebody will Photoshop Matt Hyde into it and make him the killer everyone's looking for, and people tend to fall for it. So if you didn't know, Sam Hyde, Sam Hyde, American comedian and podcaster. So Sam Hyde often gets thrown into the mix, and he gets all kinds of atrocities misattributed to him. But no, that's not really a passport from a terrorist. Now, they don't even look like ISIS, a lot of people remarked, and it looks like fireworks, it looks like flamethrowers. These weapons are obviously using what look to be simunition. Maybe we'll get to Kyle Rittenhouse. He was giving a speech the other day and he got chased out by inconvenient questions. Yeah, Sam Hyde, excuse me on that. He's a comedian, but for some reason he's been, like, I fell for it. I did a Christchurch shooting documentary. It's on BitChute. And if you look at the image of the shooter, it's Sam Hyde, because I thought that was him. Someone photoshopped his face over the real shooter, Brenton Tarrant. Illusion Warfare says the whole narrative will have inconsistencies and plot holes to keep the mainstream and alternative folks busy arguing within the endless dialectics, trying to solve the crime. They want you online all day creating or consuming content. He nailed it. This is exactly how it works. They get you to take sides and fight over the interpretation of it without questioning whether it actually happened. So here is Syrian girl with a 1,000 myriad of rabbit trails for you to go down. And none of these will lead you to the truth. They will all lead you deeper in. In fact, the more you follow these trails, the deeper into the lies you get. You don't arrive at the conclusion that none of it happened. That should be your starting point.
Syrian girl, and I'm in Moscow right now. Just after the terrorist attack, I can tell you that most people are doubting that this is ISIS. Most people, including the government, likely are suspecting that this is Ukrainian terrorists. This is not the first time that a terrorist attack happened in Moscow. Of course, there was the assassination of Daria Dugina with a car bomb right here. There were multiple other attempts at attacks. There is heightened security here, although I think it became a little bit too relaxed over time. And now that
she's saying that in Moscow, people are having doubts that it was really ISIS. So again, the official story is wrong. There's more to the story. This is what I call MSM+. Alt media is MSM+. It's a subset of the mainstream. It's the mainstream with a little more crazy sauce on top of it. And when you go this direction, when you go MSM+, you look crazier. Because you are crazier. Because you believe in more stuff that didn't happen, and you're more enraged about it. You're more emotional about it. You're more triggered by it. The most triggered people of all are the residents of Woketown and Trutherville. They can't figure out why Normieville won't wake up and join their side. So it's Trutherville versus Woketown, and they're both trying to recruit Normieville because they want all of Normieville to become Woketown or to become Truthers. That's what they're fighting over, which is basically the fringes doing the work of government mind control globally. Like if mind control is nothing more than synchronizing everybody into this false worldview, there's no way a small group could get everybody to be stuck in a massive global cult without a lot of help. So they get a lot of help from people who are radicalized, who are true believers, like churches. You know, you get true believers to do your proselytizing, to go door to door, getting the doors slammed in their faces. Meanwhile, the church has its priesthood living lavishly, but the true believers who know it's not just a big pyramid of bullshit are the ones who are actually taking the hits in the street, getting persecuted, getting laughed at, getting mocked, because they're dupes. And I'm not a media dupe. I'm not going to carry propaganda. I'm not going to do their dirty work. I'm not going to carry their burden of proof. And anybody who does not get the moral nor intellectual high ground. They lose both. And you have to remind them of this. Crypto Kubrology said, the Tenet-inspired shooting in Moscow occurred 42 months and 19 days after Tenet was released. I've heard this a few times. Here's a opening scene. Here we go. Oh, Tenet Opera Siege. Here we go. Copyrights to this video are owned by Warner Brothers. Opening siege of the Opera Building. And let me see the most recent comments to see if anybody has correlated it. Age is like wine. This actually happened yesterday. Programming. Let's watch this clip. Okay, so we're looking at the scene, if you're just listening, of a concert. And here we go. Terrorists, people screaming, just like what we saw yesterday. Wake up the Americans. Okay, this is from Tenet. I recall this scene now. And we are looking at a siege in an opera. As rehearsed last year, as warned about 2 weeks ago, predicted in another movie. Now, going back to what Will Smith was saying from the movie Focus to Margot Robbie, it doesn't matter whether you are cognizant of all the programming that you're absorbing. It's all going in to film your frame of reference. It's all giving you that hyper suggestibility. It makes you more susceptible to this stuff. And so I'm suggesting that a popular movie like this, yeah, you might not even remember the scene, but your subconscious remembers it. And so when they play it on TV, you've already had those neural pathways bored out. And there's some kind of a gas here being used to kill everybody. And one of the stories from yesterday was that the fire they set caused 30 or 40 or more people in the bathrooms to suffocate. Very interesting connection here. There's a link in the chat if you want to join the parallel media community on X. It's ground zero for the auto hoax mind virus that's about to go pandemic. Now, where is it coming from? If you remember, C19 was preceded by a comet called C19. Remember, in 2019, you had a comet that broke apart, and it was like greenish in the sky. It was called Atlas. Discovered December 28th, 2019. And then it broke apart. And some had suggested that maybe the comet itself had been the source of the thing. And of course that was shot down, but some did suggest that it came from space. I'd called it space AIDS at the time. Well, the AutoHoax 2024 virus that's coming is actually arriving by way of a planet killer space rock, which we've also called AutoHoax 2024. So the space rock's coming. It's going to likely break apart in our atmosphere, and then the virus will then descend, and we'll take it from there. This is where it's at. It says so many shootings at concerts. Yeah, I can kind of see why they shot up the Eagles from death metal. No, they're not that bad. But the Bataclan. The Bataclan one was similar to this in many ways. In fact, one of the firemen who was there had also been part of some Afghanistan drill. And then later he shows up at the Notre Dame fire. And the guy who rescued the crown of thorns before it burned was somebody who saved lives at Bataclan. And I was watching the Bataclan thing, and afterward they interviewed the band, and the singer was crying on camera, and his bandmates just didn't look like they were feeling it. Like they couldn't act, or maybe they just felt bad about it, but you could tell it was all just a ruse. And was that blamed on ISIS? I was kind of wondering, whatever happened to ISIS? Like they phased out terrorism, nobody believes in it anymore. And then look, we finally have a terrorist attack, and now they're saying it's not terrorists. Like nobody wants to believe it. All right, moving on. Shootings at concerts, Vegas. This one also was somewhat reminiscent of Vegas. And one other point, when it comes to fakeability, I am in no way asserting that everybody there was a part of it. You're talking about a theater that can hold, 6,000 people or something. It's a closed movie set when it goes down. And you don't know if what you're seeing is being recorded live or not. They did a drill there recently. They could be using drills to create the special effects, to do the actual dramatic sequences, which then they insert into the news later. Isabel Ann says, maybe if you wear a blue shirt, you won't get shot. I didn't see many squibs. It wasn't a very squibby event. All right, let's move on. Yeah, blue is only laser proof. Yeah, Sam Hyde is an American comedian, writer, internet personality. He was involved in $1 Million Extreme. And his content includes satire and dark comedy. So for him, it's really good branding that every time there's a mass shooting, he gets blamed for it. Continuing, this event took a lot of time away from other things we could be talking about, like Kate Middleton. 2 weeks prior to the attack, UK and US embassies in Moscow warned of extremist plans to target large gatherings in Moscow. On the 19th of March, the Russian president called the warnings outright blackmail. Copaesthetic says, this event will be used to further gun control in the U.S. Colorado will pass an AR ban today. So will Washington, I think. Now, I saw that ruling about how undocumented citizens, migrants, illegals, whatever you want to call them, they can own guns. And to me, this sounds consistent. Don't conservatives always say that these rights are God-given, that these aren't privileges from the government, but these are inalienable rights, that you're born with the right. You know, you come out of the womb, they can put an AR-15 in your hands. God gave you that. So there's no reason why, because you're not an American, you can't just come over here and start walking around with a gun. And this ruling has upset a lot of people on the right, which makes no sense. It's like, I thought you guys would be on board with this thing. But it also kind of suggests something strange about the left. I thought those guys were anti-gun. So now they're cool with guns, as long as it's not a MAGA. They're cool with guns if it's from MS-13. They came over here, you know, in the middle of the night, they jumped the wall or something, they don't care, but they do care if it's a... You see what I mean? It's kind of strange. Contradictions. What the right should be saying is, yeah, arm up. We are the party that supports that. The Democrats who invited you here will take those guns away if you vote for them. Like, I would be pandering to my armed illegal immigrants if I was a Republican. Trump should do that. He should reach out to his armed immigrants. All right, moving on. Rambo says, during World War III, people will be hiding behind their sofas at bombs get dropped live on TV. Yes. And my comment to this was, leave the world behind is an anagram for behold the end war live. And the movie ends where one of the main characters, Rose, secures herself in a bunker and starts to watch TV just as the world ends. That's why they need you home. This is where it's at, says, it's odd that hip-hop stole the drill term. Drill rappers are a thing. Oh yeah, like Little Jojo, drill rap, dies, repackages, comes back as XXX Tentacion, does some work for the Parkland High School, and then he dies. I don't know what happened to him next. Hank G says, illegals owning guns is an extension of the squatting story. I'll be like, yeah, you come to America, you get a house, you get a gun, but you got to vote for Trump. All right, let's see what else. Russian cosmism is something we could talk about next. Yeah, I did want to get into this topic. There's so many other things, like I said, but this 322 really took center stage. Candace Owens. I want to talk about Candace Owens getting kicked off of her network. And, you know, she's an actress. And the only reason why Candace Owens is out there and why she's anyone, anywhere in media is they can use her to say the things that they can't say. Like, for example, if a white male said any of the things Candace said, it would be death to the Daily Wire. So they have a black female espouse these things. So like, you're a self-hating, you have internalized misogyny, you're a black female white supremacist. Doesn't make any sense. Then she's hanging out with Ye, black skinhead, white lives matter. You see, they have these very incendiary ideas, but they don't dare let those ideas come out of the mouths of the people who actually believe this stuff. It's all just so mind-warping. And she's obviously being used for these propaganda purposes. There's no way she's dumb. And they're getting her off the network now because she's become a little too unhinged, I think, uncontrolled. She can't hide behind plausible deniability. She has been saying some things that, you know, you would consider to be, quote, anti-Semitic. You know, whether you think that word means anything or not, there are certain opinions she's made that have branded her that way. And she has since parted ways with Daily Wire. And plus, I mean, how could you work with Ben Shapiro, who has a very hard stance on this? I mean, nobody wanted there to be 40 dead Israeli babies more than Ben Shapiro, because he wanted to grandstand on top of those little dead bodies. And nobody wanted to believe it because, of course, at the time, and at this time that we're at right now, each side can conveniently ignore the atrocities that their side commits because they can say, oh, that was fake. But your atrocities against us, yeah, those were real. Stormy Daniels was on The View, and she says MAGA suicide bombers are now texting her threats from her phone. MAGA suicide bombers. Now, that might sound like an exaggeration, but I've been pointing out for some time that QAnon, Quran, that there's a parallel here. We're talking about the radical extremists from outside terrorism and domestic terrorism both have the similar template. And I refer to them as the MAGA ban for this reason. The MAGA ban has increasingly adopted Taliban values. And you could even look at someone like Candace Owens and that whole network as being a part of this. And this is where you get women shouldn't vote, women shouldn't drive, you need to lower the age of consent. You hear this stuff from Nick Fuentes and all them. Go rural, get out of the towns. Yeah, there's a bigger picture here. And it has to do with basically values. It comes down to values. And what I'm suggesting is that the MAGA ban and the Taliban are built on the same worldview, and they're aiming against the deep state or the great Satan. You have their holy warriors, the jihadis, suicide vest, Allah Akbar, blow themselves up, go into paradise. Then you have incels, who are similarly sexually repressed terrorists, ready to go out and do damage against the West, or Western women, or Western society. But these are parallel. So the term MAGA suicide bombers isn't as ridiculous as it might look at first glance. Yeah, and when he said a storm was coming last year, we had Stormy Daniels' birthday. We talked about it. And it was right before Trump was being arrested. And it was Q drop number 55 that mentions that the first arrest will shock the world. And people are like, wow, it's about to happen. The storm is coming. And then Stormy Daniels, porn star, starts making the headlines. I'm like, what is going on here? It gets even weirder and more intricate. Q drop 55. He goes to the courthouse to be arraigned on 4/4, which is the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. Lots of 55. Lots of instances of that just happen to show up around this stuff, referencing this storm thing. So again, Stormy Daniels, storm is coming. A lot of people read into it. Now it's 1 year later, and it's the same story. What's going on here? And then Daniel the prophet was mentioned. In fact, she had a cake last year on her birthday, and this is why I mentioned it. Last year, her birthday cake had a horse on it, and it said lawless. And of course, the Antichrist referred to as this lawless man. But there was some bizarre stuff, and it just, to me, I'm just saying, others have noticed this as well. It seems to comport with a lot of the Q nonsense. Stormy Daniels on X, a couple days late, but thank you all for the birthday wishes. So last year she puts out this cake with a horse on it, which is sort of like, four horsemen, apocalyptic. And it says lawless. Make of that what you will. All right, let's move forward. All right, let's see. This is Kyle Rittenhouse got murdered in Tennessee. Let's go ahead and play this. Let's see what happened to Kyle and why was he not able to stick around. What did they ask him?
Said a lot of racist things. Like what racist things has Trump?
Okay, this is great. So Kyle is up there at the top. He's on the stage and he's talking, and someone asks a question and they say, "Can you answer for any of the racist things Charlie Kirk has said?" And Kyle's like, "What are you talking about?"
We're gonna have a little bit of a dialogue about what racist things has Charlie Kirk said. Okay, I'll answer the question of racist things he said. He says we shouldn't celebrate Juneteenth. We shouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King Day. We should be working those days. It's called the Ketanji Brown Jackson affirmative action hire.
Okay, if you're not hearing this well, Kyle says, what racist things did Charlie Kirk say? which is kind of a setup because you can find a list of things. And the audience member provides a list of things. He said, no more MLK Day, turn back the civil rights. He called Ketanji Jackson an affirmative action hire. Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes are 100% racist Nazis. That's their ideology. They don't like being called Nazis, but they hate Jews. They think we need to have a pure white government, white nationalism. I mean, it's racial purity. That's their main thing. And if you go to any of their memes, you can see the animosity towards non-whites. Like, it's not even a secret. It's not even wrong, to describe them accurately as racist. That's just where they are at. They want to organize on the basis of that. And Charlie Kirk, Fuentes, all these characters are all in the same box. So Kyle's at an event sponsored by Charlie Kirk. And it's called, Turning Point. He does Turning Point USA. Turning Point is a reference to the Turner Diaries, which is about white nationalists nuking everybody else in the world except for the whites, basically. That's kind of what it's about. Race war. So you have this Turning Point, Turner Diaries. Turning Point also refers to when the ATF goes to take the guns there at Waco, where Trump kicked off his campaign. Waco, the genesis of a lot of this type of thinking. And it's all blaming Jews. That the Jews are opening the borders to bring non-whites in to kill the whites, great replacement theory. So for Kyle to not know any of this means he's a tool. It means he's being led around by these propagandists like a total idiot, and he has no clue who he's working for. Like, it's pretty sad he doesn't know this, but what does he do? He walks out on it.
He's talked nonsense about George Floyd, and he said he'd be scared if a black pilot was on a plane. Does that not seem racist? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, Charlie Cook did say he wouldn't want to be on a plane with a black pilot. Candace Owens said she wouldn't want to fly with a female pilot. And they said because of DEI, which, again, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're operating on the premise that DEI means you are therefore lowering standards. Oh, we got to lower standards so a female can fly, according to Candace Owens, who again plays the role of a conservative with a lot of internalized misogyny. But that's not how it works. But these are statements that they have made consistently again and again. Kyle doesn't know. He's not in the know. He's flabbergasted. So he takes his, I guess it's a emotional comfort animal, his dog, and he runs out.
Okay, well, after all the things I just told you, would you consider that hate speech? I'm not going to comment on that.
I'm not going to comment on that. What a coward. I mean, they're not chasing him, trying to bash his head in. They're not trying to, cranium him with a rock. There's not an angry mob. They're just asking questions, just words. He stood up to that mob, but he couldn't stand up to this one. Here's a few seconds later, he walks off with his support dog.
He says we shouldn't celebrate Juneteenth. We shouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King Day. We should be working those days. It's called Ketanji Brown Jackson and affirmative.
Okay, bye, Cryo. All right, let's move on. In Mr. Bond, they have a saying in Chicago. Oh, this is from Ian Fleming's book. One of the villains says this to James Bond. He says, they have a saying in Chicago. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, third time is enemy action. I bring that up with regard to predictive programming. This Russian thing. There's a drill for it. It's mentioned in the movie Tenet. I don't think it's a mere happenstance. I don't think it's coincidence. Predictive programming exists. And it's important not to mystify it because it gives the appearance of fulfilled prophecies or a divine hand. I mean, this was a conversation earlier this week we had. Who's behind predictive programming? Is it God? Is there a devil, a demiurge? Who's behind predictive programming? Who put that scene in Tenet? Is it a higher power? Because there's too many coincidences. No way man could do it, right? Wrong. Wrong. In my view, the truther consensus is wrong. The truther consensus is like, it can't be a coincidence, there's too many examples, therefore a god or a higher power or a supercomputer. A supercomputer writes the news because there's no way men could do this, really? Imagine if we said, there's no way that anybody's smart enough to hack. If anybody's computer's hacked, it's gremlins. The gremlins do it. Well, wait a minute here. If we say that all hacking is being done by gremlins, then the hackers never get arrested. So if we say that all of the predictive programming is the result of AI and supercomputers and demiurges and gods, if we say it's supernatural, then guess what? The reality hackers never get investigated. And the only people investigating the reality hackers are us. Nobody else even knows they exist. They pay no attention to the reality hackers behind the curtain. Prognosis episode 3 is out. Me and Armin Reed talked about tarot cards and symbolism, and waiting for some feedback from listeners. A lot of it's been very positive, and we'll do a follow-up. We'll talk about other related subjects. Symbolism is the main thing. Trevor Complain says, man is God's uniform. To answer my question, who's behind predictive programming? Man is God's uniform. AYZ World says, if AI is writing the news, then my guess, like ChatGPT, AI is just a blunt tool they use to generate content ideas and storylines to mass produce it, nothing more. It's still man behind it all. Occam's Razor, Wizard of Oz. Yes. And I've often heard this argument that the Bible is proof of its own divinity because it's fulfilled of prophecies, or many prophecies. And it looks like that because you're looking at it within a closed system of ideas. And the mainstream media, if you look at it from this perspective, you could say that predictive programming are prophecies, and prophecies are coming true. And this is consistent with what I've been saying about the media's role in supplanting religion. It is the new holy book, and it has all the same components. It's like a template. The black screen is the new Bible for the new world order religion that we're already a part of, and they're just in the middle of censoring it at this time. But it does contain what appears to be the miraculous. And it's a compendium of myths that you're meant to believe. It has an assertion of authority that you're meant to just succumb to, submit to. But my assertion, and people can argue against this, is that man is doing the predictive programming as part of a build-up for news bending our reality with fake news. If you rule out man, but you still agree that man fakes the news, then you're suggesting that man fakes the news and God does predictive programming, which makes no sense when you break it down. But I'm always interested in hearing people's takes on this. All right, let me go ahead and open up phones here. 505-349-0420. Main topic is obviously Skull and Bones Day. What happened there? What didn't happen there? If you believe it happened and you don't have evidence, I'm going to have to ask you who's paying you, and if you're not getting paid, what's the motivation? Infinite Plane Radio, how many people died in Russia on 322?
Is any answer correct?
I guess the answer
is there a correct answer?
The answer would be the number of people died is the number reported minus 133. And that you go through all the hospitals, all the morgues, all the funerals. In other words, in my opinion, the answer would be just subtract whatever they added on.
Well, I said earlier I don't know, but you said that's the wrong answer, so fair enough. I mean,
well, you could say you don't
obviously,
know. You don't know.
My
It's
thing
fair. It's fair. It is a fair answer.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. considering like I wasn't there, you know. I mean, I always told you, or my opinion anyways, is the hybrid approach. Some fake, some real. I don't know.
See,
all fake. Oh, all fake. Okay, that's you're. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. We're human beings with 2 feet on the terra firma, whether it's flat or globe. We're entitled to certain things.
Yeah,
in my opinion, as long as you don't produce victims, you can do what you want.
Well, we are entitled to our own opinions, but not facts. And this is where we're getting into
facts, opinions. Facts, opinions. There's a gray area, right?
Yeah. So everyone gets their opinions, but the facts are the facts, and that's what we're focusing on. And we don't have enough facts for the opinion that something happened the way they described to have any sort of a factual basis. And so if we're only going on facts, we have to go with the subtractive. What can we prove? And we can prove something happened, but we cannot verify the accounts as they report. We can only say that it was something happened, and then we get into the weeds here. But my point here is that we can't say I don't know, therefore I'm going to go with them. We can't say
that, but you know, if somebody like me says that, you know, that's not what I'm saying.
I know, I understand your perspective, but
I agree with you.
I'm making the broader
I agree
point.
with you. Like, I agree with you. What the mainstream narrative isn't to be taken as facts,
and
it's
the alt.
In my opinion, for us, it's to be taken as a piece of reconnaissance.
Yes. Yes.
This is what they want us to think.
Exactly. That's what they want us to think. That is how it works. And I've extended the scrutiny to the alt media. It's like, okay, the alt media wants us to believe this. The mainstream wants us to believe this. And that's what the masses will believe. But yeah, as far as
you can't trust the alt anymore. You couldn't trust it back in the day, really, even though it was more organic then. But now you definitely can't. But it's there for people to interpret with their own perspective, and people like us, I think, in my opinion, we all have different. We can't all agree upon everything, but we're all kind of like on the same wavelength as far as frequency goes, because we don't believe a lot of the hype.
Yeah.
So from people like us, it's to be taken in to use discernment with.
Yeah, I refer to this frames. It's like your frame is either Normieville, Trutherville, Woketown, or skeptic. And if you're not a skeptic, you're in one of these other three frames. You're in the box. And it's really that cut and dry. And that's how they maintain the order here. It's like it's so compartmentalized. And it's nice that a lot of us here
the pyramid, compartmentalization, they love that symbol.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's how
the bricks stacked.
Yep. Every brick represents another compartment where they only know what's in their brick and they don't know what the next person knows in their brick. And that's how the thing functions.
That's not us though, right?
No, we can see the entire structure.
Where do we sit in that picture?
Okay, I look at the pyramid in the middle of the world stage, and we are outside of the world stage's spotlight in what they would consider to be darkness. So we have a full perspective of the stage as such.
So we're like ghosts observing the symbol.
Yeah, exactly.
Ghost in the machine.
The overview effect the astronauts claim to have. Oh, we got so high we can see the entire world and it's changed our view. Well, we actually have that. We've gone so far outside their box that we can see the box as such.
Spiritual enlightenment at some level.
Yeah, I think there's a point. There's a point where it's like...
I mean, all that stuff where they talk about doing all the spiritual enlightenment and tantric sex and like the chakras and like the Christians talk about whatever thing that happens to them in life at one time or another, where they think it's God or Jesus or like this thing, right? Like, in my opinion, I listen to those stories and it makes sense. It's a little hard to believe, but if you do it on your own this is my perspective, researching and things that make sense, you connect the dots, and like obviously we're at some level of spiritual enlightenment where like it doesn't work on us. So thankfully this group can see things. We don't all agree upon one thing or the other. We all have our own perspectives, but we can kind of agree on it's not what it seems.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Without the holy moment. I've never had one, but I could see that things don't seem what they seem.
Yes. And I find this to be interesting, though, when we talk about deception, people think about like spiritual deception, and there's psychological deception, emotional deception. What if it's all on a continuum? They plug you in emotionally to fool your mind, and they fool your mind to block your connection to your spiritual awareness, intuition. And it all begins with the animal level emotional manipulation to prevent you from reaching anything transcendent above your material, physical meat suit needs. So I do think that discernment does lead to a higher awareness, and the media is an obstacle to spiritual awareness, which makes me think that these televangelists cannot lead people to spirituality. These televangelists, or the people who preach from within the world stage, I don't think they can align someone. Really, I think it's like MSM Plus. It's like following a conspiracy theorist influencer to get the truth about the news. I think it goes deeper into the matrix that way.
Yeah, when you said that, we're not like that. But when you said that, I thought distraction.
Yeah.
It doesn't distract us.
If anything, it entertains us because we're
exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yes. You. What do you call it? Conspiratainment.
Yeah. Are you not conspiratained? I know I am.
I laugh. The people I know, they're like, dude, what are you laughing at? When shit on it or stuff on the TV or the news or whatever is like crazy, because I'm like, that's what they want us to believe, and I have my own perspective, and it makes me laugh. And in these, what's that word? Like, I don't know, macabre or whatever, like bad moments. I'm like laughing. I'm not laughing because maybe people got hurt. I'm laughing because the chances are that there's a narrative there. And they're weaving it.
Well, the fact that you're laughing is very significant as well. You know, like there's some among us who know that life is but a joke. Was it that Watchtower song has this idea, the fool, the joker? And the fool is something we were talking about in that podcast, me and Armin Ree, who is...
That podcast was fire, bro.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
That's why I came to your channel, was that esoteric stuff.
Right.
That stuff, when you talk that and you talk that with other people, I'm sitting there like thinking about stuff, bro.
Well, we really got into the figure of the fool, who is like on the world stage in the movies. We see like Jim Carrey in The Truman Show is a perfect example of it, where he doesn't begin to wake up till you realize he's been made a fool his entire life, and then he figures out the whole thing's a stage and he escapes it.
The funny guy too,
and
like he is that guy.
Exactly, and what you have to become the fool.
He did that Numbers movie.
The number 23. The number 23. And you know what's okay? This is intriguing. The number 23 is actually about the book Cosmic Trigger. That's what the book and the movie's about, by Dr. Sirius Leary in the movie. But anyway, the Cosmic Trigger is about the dog star being the thing that triggers someone to higher states of consciousness. So what woke up Truman in The Truman Show? The dog star, Sirius's satellite, or rather the stage light fell. So in both number 23 and Truman Show, they have this clear reference to the dog star being the thing that awakens the guy. And in the number 23, he's even a dog catcher.
Yeah, so, okay, let me shoot this off quick before I forget it. You got dog, right? Dog star, that's Sirius. What is the most? It's the brightest star.
Yes. Oh yes.
So, dog, G-O-D, D-O-G, G-O-D. We know they love inversion. Okay. You said something earlier, just tonight in this stream, that got me thinking inversion with, and there's so many ways to say that, right? Inversion, but that's what I like is the inversion with the Moscow thing. And you said something, and I was thinking inversion, and that Syrian girl stuff, like, I get it. It's narrative weaving, but a lot of what she was saying, in my opinion, was it puts a decent perspective out there as far as like, yeah, like obviously and plus it's like another thing because it's this stream you're doing right now. You brought in the title 322, like yeah, obviously something's not right. 322, inversion, everything that's going on geopolitically, as far as like Jim Carrey and the Dog Star go. My connection right now is the DOG and the GOD, and I know you know this, and everybody else knows this, but their narrative weaving is very intricate, in my opinion. But at the same time, with discernment, it's also very fundamental because they basically go off of like duality or inversion or like some kind of trinity. To get a little further into details, but basically it's like duality, inversion, foundation.
Well, every Masonic lodge has the Dog Star in it. It's the Eastern Star. It's actually.
Did that make any sense, though?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Aleister Crowley said, "Is God to live in a dog?" And he was the one who said you have to learn how to read backward and forward. That you have to learn how to walk backward, speak backward, and what they're referencing here, of course, is the Dog Star is where they believe, for some reason, they center their religion, their whole cosmology around.
Well, they like the brightness, the enlightenment. Of course, Sirius is going to be important. It's the brightest star.
Yeah, and for people who don't.
And just to throw something else out there.
Sure.
I play hockey and I play defense, and I spend more of my time skating backwards.
Interesting. Well, the fact of it is, every New Year's Eve, what are we all doing? We're counting down what? To the ball dropping in Times Square. But at midnight on New Year's Eve, the Dog Star reaches its highest point and then it falls. Like the ball. It drops the rest of the year. So we're all oriented around that star. We're all celebrating it in some pagan rite that we don't even know we're taking part in. And the Dog Star is also related to the New Year's on the Egyptian calendar. So that star is extremely significant in all of this, but it represents in the
solar calendar.
The solar calendar. And there's this idea that when the star Sirius is behind the sun, that's what they call the dog days of summer, that the sun's energies are intensified. So there's a lot built into this whole this Dog Star construct, but according to Robert Anton Wilson's book Cosmic Trigger, it's sending signals that when the initiates are aligned with it, it causes them to achieve some higher states of awareness. So it's interesting, again, that in the number 23, this character as a dog catcher has this experience where his mind shatters because of this number 23. But
is that what that movie was about? He's a dog catcher?
Well, he's a dog catcher, yeah. And then he finds this book about synchronicities with the number 23, and it drives him kind of crazy. But that book is not even loosely
in number 23, not Truman.
No, but in the Truman Show, it's the Dog Star that wakes him up. It's this light that falls. So in both.
Are you a dog person, like a pet person?
Yeah, I mean, dogs are people. Dogs are great people. They're actually better than most people. I like dogs quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I get along with. I mean, dogs because they're, whatever that word is, but yeah, animals in general. But yeah, like dogs, like. I just get on with them better.
Oh, hey, look what
I mean. I love people too, but it's like, man, I'm like, why do I like dogs better? But so yes, obviously there's something about the dog too.
Well, yeah, there definitely is. And do us some para mentions. There was a crisis actor dog. There's a dog named Sirius from the K9 unit, and K is 11-9. A dog named Sirius dies in the Twin Towers on 9/11, and 1 year prior, he was hanging out with Bill Clinton. And there's a picture where Bill Clinton says, Sirius is beautiful. Interestingly, 9/11 is the New Year on the Coptic calendar. So the connection between Sirius and New Year's.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say is like the whole lunar calendar and then these different calendars. Like we're on the solar calendar, and you were talking about New Year's, and oh man, you said something like it escaped me. But dude, if the dog's name like that guy knows what he's talking about. I've heard him call in. I've seen him in the chat. Like, yeah, like the dog's name is Sirius. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know I've met a lot of these cop dogs, and they all have symbolic names. These cop dogs do not have like, you know, their name's not Bubba or Doggy. You know, their name's like Odin or I mean, literally, I've met cop dogs and I've met like handler dogs, and they got significant names because whatever it may be, maybe the person's not like on the same wavelength we are, but like they understand like what there's this thing. Obviously, there's, like I said, there's something with a dog, DOG, some type of symbolic representation there for us to discern.
Look at this on the screen
and I know
here.
I get along with dogs really good, you know, and I try to get along with people.
Well, this is a picture of Bill Clinton with the dog, and it says Sirius is beautiful. And if you look at the date, 9/11, 2000.
Come
so
on.
1 year prior
Come
to
on.
9/11, Clinton's
You're
hanging out,
screwing with me.
and he says Sirius is beautiful. I'm like,
Wait, dude, you're full of shit, bro.
It's on the screen. And I was
Really?
like, yeah,
Come
this
on.
Bill Clinton with Sirius
So
the
why
dog.
wouldn't we think? I mean, see, they're fucking with us now. They do that to fuck with us.
Well,
Excuse me. Now I'm swearing, all right? But come on, dude, obviously they're screwing with us.
that's a crisis actor dog. It's a crisis actor. I mean, that dog's not dead.
Does the dog know, though?
No, it's just not his fault, obviously. But
You know? I mean, yeah,
I'm happy. Look, I'm happy
we had
he didn't
that Garden of Eden moment. Now we know that the other animals, the other species didn't. They don't know. Even though they're vicious in some forms, they don't know good and evil. They didn't have that Garden of Eden moment.
You know, I'm glad you
I don't
brought
know
this
what
up.
that I don't know what that means, but symbolically and allegorically, that's why we know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about innocence. And
So like, yeah, so this numbnuts Bill Clinton, it's like who knows if he even knows, but whoever, like, dude, they're messing with us, bro. Sirius, 9/11, Bill Clinton chilling with the dog. Come on, dude.
now check this out. Since we're talking about 3:22, Genesis 3:22 pertains to what you were just talking about. Man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to take from the tree of life, eat, and live forever. That's Genesis 3:22. It's about man becoming like the gods.
I know you've talked about it. I've heard it. I have Bibles. I don't read them enough. I do. When I do, it's in a research form, you know, of allegory or whatever. And like, yeah, there's stuff in there, man, to be interpreted. And obviously, like, there's something going on. Like I said, that thing happened yesterday on the numerical day it was, and I live over here on the East Coast. Okay. Yeah, like those guys in the tomb, they got that number and that name, and they're in that school. There's stuff going on there too. There's dots connected to connect there too. So, and it's in the Bible. And I know you're like, yeah, you entertain numerology and gematria, and you know, we don't all have to have our favored sources of research, but at the very least, you know, there's something up there.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I don't mean
so
to...
three and two, right? This is the way, without getting, because there's so much there. There's so much there, right? But 3 and 2, like, because I was like, man, why did they pick that one? But 3 and 2, like, and you think about the type of people that they allegedly are, is 7. 7, from what I understand, one of the interpretations of it is it's the wizard number.
Well, what do you think about the idea to become like one of us, plural? Do you subscribe to the idea that the Garden of Eden was ruled over by a group of, quote, gods, not the God?
Capital G or lowercase?
Like a bunch of lower cases.
You brought that up in the podcast, right?
Yeah, because I mean, it's like
And that's some of the stuff that blew my mind coming from the cards. That's what the cards are for stuff to come to you from them, right?
oh yeah, and you're getting into this.
Yeah,
It's
dude,
all
like,
connected. Look,
yeah,
it's,
and
it's kind of like
the way you and that guy put it, I gotta look him up too, where his stuff is.
prognosis.
9/11,
Yes.
9/11 was an apocalypse, not an Armageddon. People get those two, in my opinion, people get those two things mixed up. An apocalypse is an unveiling. 9/11 was an apocalypse. I don't know if there was eclipses back then because it also connects to eclipses. The occult is a word that connects to that. But there was definitely an unveiling. It definitely was a subliminal initiation.
Because we talk about, you said eclipses.
I agree with you guys. Subliminal initiation.
Well, you got the Stanley Kubrick 2001 with the monolith, which has the eclipse, the sun and the moon, 2 into 1. September 2001, and you have the 2 zeros, like the sun and the moon, but the combining. It does have that alchemical sun moon conjoined, and the eclipse ties into this same exact symbol, which gives you the corona. So the symbolism that they communicate is consistent, and it all does derive from Western occultism, biblical symbolism. The tarot stuff is all derived from that. The playing cards cannot be separated from the astro-theological story. It's all 4 suits, 4 seasons. It's a cult. It has a double meaning or a symbolic meaning much deeper than merely playing games. You add all the numbers on the playing cards, you get 365. So we look at the common basis for all of this stuff, and it all ties in really to, I think, the cycles of time and our constraints, time and space control. The black cube.
What would we be without? I like to wear an analog watch. Simple ones are the best, to be honest with you, because the way things go nowadays, they end up being really reliable as far as the batteries go. Typically military ones. But what will we be without that grasp of the sun up and down in time? I'm not saying I wouldn't. See, that's one of my main things is adapt to changing conditions. But yeah, like there's a lot there with time, and then when you go into flat Earth and Mandela and like simulation theory, like yeah, time doesn't mean much, right? But where we're at now, it's a trick, but it is a very, in my opinion, it's very important to understand time. And actually, I think it's like moving faster every year I get older.
Yeah, that's.
And my whole thing about the analog watch is because I watch that face. I watch that face, how it moves.
Okay, the clock face. You're looking at, Kronos, Saturn, the Father Time archetype, the Reaper, end of the cycle, and cycle and sickle. The Reaper and Father Time often have a sickle. And I think what we're looking at here is the cycle of time and space personified. But about where would we be without it? Because yeah, time exists, or it's a measuring of this process as we go through it. But there's also a level of control exerted over it, control over calendars.
Yes.
And John Dee, because you mentioned flat Earth. Interestingly enough,
if you could figure out the control, though, then you could get as possibly, in one way or another, ascend to their level.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
I don't know.
Look,
I don't know how to figure out these calendars. There's so many calendars. I got the watch in my face. I watch, the sun going up and down, the moon, and if I was smart enough, I could figure out what it all meant, and then I'd be like, okay, you guys are here. I know they're somewhere, but I don't know where. But if I could figure all that out, how the dominoes line up, then I know where they are.
Well, they lie about space. They probably lie about time. They lie about time when they tell us we're in the end times. They control time by writing our history, by faking it in real time. So there is a level of time and control here that makes me think that we're actually discombobulated majorly. And it's notable that John Dee was an advisor to Mercator, doing these voyages of exploration. We have our Mercator projection, the globe concept. But at the same time, John Dee was involved in getting the Gregorian calendar accepted. So time control and space control are like the two primary objectives of the power elite. And like the movie The Village, tell them they're in the 18th century and keep them in this little area, time and space control. And I think.
Oh yeah, that's why feudalism. That's why I think at some level they're trying to bring feudalism back in.
Yes, I think that's absolutely the case. A space communism, as from the very beginning of the
Some
space
level.
program, it has always been. If you look at what the space program will lead to, Mars bases.
That's why they're always messing with transportation.
Yes, because they don't want you to go anywhere, and they're going to make it very
Mercury.
comfortable. Look, keep us contained, happy, content, bred in circuses.
Mercury got the boots with the wings on them.
Yes, yes. And feudalism is basically about being confined to a fiefdom. And what happens if you go to a Mars base? You're confined in a deep underground base for life. It's prison. Yet somehow they've convinced us that that is the ultimate success of technology and innovation and science, to go live in some space gulag. Like, no thanks. I'd be happy for Fight the Flat Earth.
I can't imagine. I mean, things can change. Crazy things can happen. But honestly, this reality that we live in, I live in, I think we all live in, it's whatever level. I can't imagine why I would run to some unknown reality. However the media says it's real or not, this space bullshit. Well, it's not BS. It's whatever it is. Like, I'm not saying it's fake or not. It's cool. I look at the stars and the planets, and it helps me think, especially when you're somewhere where there's no street lights.
Same.
But
yes.
I can't imagine something I would want to run away from this reality from, to like jump on whatever these things, these like spaceships to go. Like, Aliens was a cool movie. I love it. But I'm here, dude. I can't imagine something that would make me want to go do that. Unless they have something up their sleeve that would.
You know, I think that they want to convince you that the world's so bad that you want to leave. They instilled this with cultural pessimism and guilt tripping and making you think humans are the problem. And I think that they're trying to get people to devalue their physical existence, so they put more value in the simulation, the meta-verse over the meat-verse. They want us to hate ourselves. I can't think of anything more misanthropic than environmentalism and the whole premise, because their long-term view looks like putting us all into cities that are enclosed like human zoos, and the zookeepers are the elite. Just all these disparate villages where they can rewild everything in between and keep us from stepping on it, because of course we're super spreaders of carbon. We're life super spreaders. It's very anti-life.
I agree. I agree. They do want us to second guess ourselves as far as hating yourself, and it's sometimes it's easy to do that. Unfortunately, even with me, like, I'm like, man, like, I gotta be better on different levels, like not their level, but my level. But it's like, yeah, dude, like, when I second guess myself, I don't like that feeling.
Well,
and a lot of it's trends. Like, I know what's right and wrong because I am human and I'm not a dog, and I have that Garden of Eden experience in me. So obviously, I mean, I'm not no angel. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I work on myself all the time, and like, second guessing yourself sucks. And that's one of their angles, dude. That's how they work on us, is psychologically. You know that, Edward Bernays, marketing, and it doesn't work on us as good as other people, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of ego attachment to our beliefs that keep us locked into stuff. And that's why me and that other individual in that podcast were talking about the Fool card, because you have to recognize your capacity to be fooled by the nature of this place to even see through it. that's why I study logical fallacies. It's like if I didn't study those, I wouldn't know why I don't believe in something. I need to know why. I need to improve the methodology for how we're observing the news. And if I ever find myself wrong, or I've got some faulty premise and I went the wrong way, I'm gonna be able to walk my way back out of it. And so I'm also, I think we're all doing this, working on improving our approach to everything. And I think we've done a lot of good work here overall, because you're talking to a group of people, dozens, maybe more than 100 right now, who weren't the least bit triggered over news reports of 133 people being massacred. Like, none of us were even triggered by it. We were
Is
just
that what the number finally was?
Yeah, 133.
Because, I haven't even really touched that, but what I was saying in the chat was like, I heard the reports. I heard AJ, which yesterday he didn't say much. I didn't follow up with his other broadcasts and stuff. That stuff you can catch later, And then I got some stuff I listened to that's from over there. I heard this Syrian girl thing. I know what I know. And from what I know, it seems similar to an operation that isn't familiar to closer to home ones. There's differences to me in the operation. There was, whatever it may be, real or not, or hybrid.
Well,
there was things that I noticed more so from over there than over here. But maybe they did that on purpose to make it look that way. But either way, it was on the day, and I think can we actually? Obviously, it's not going to. I mean, I subscribe to the hybrid approach, but
look, we shouldn't be able to predict.
I think
we shouldn't be able to say.
You
shouldn't be able to say a bad thing's going to happen tomorrow and it happens, because we're not supposed to be able to predict the future. Yet we've been so attuned to their news cycles. We've actually been capable here of predicting these types of things. That's why we say 322 is a super day for a psyop. If you look at the date 322 and you go through Wikipedia, a lot of stuff happens.
You just reminded me of something.
But
so when I studied the Chechen thing from the school, that's the similarities I noticed. I'm not going to get into details, right? But I noticed similarities. Okay. And then 322, like we've been saying, okay? What is on their fancy flag?
I don't know what is on it.
I'll say it, but the fancy flag, because they have the regular colored one. Then they got the fancy one with the gold trim, and then the picture in the middle, because it was on the Olympic jerseys and stuff. It's got the two-headed phoenix.
Okay, I see.
On 322.
Well, hey, I'm on Wikipedia now, and I'm looking at other events that have happened, and some of these are going to be worth going through. We got the one in Colorado, 322, which had all kinds of 33s attached to it. But this is
yesterday?
Well, no, that was a few years ago, but this is a very interesting date to go through. Anyway, hey, I have someone else who's trying to call in.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Roger.
the comments.
Thank you,
as always.
my friend.
Yeah, and I'll put a link in the chat if you haven't already got it to that podcast that we were referencing. Other people are asking as well. It's called Prognosis with
I listened to the whole thing. I'm gonna look that guy up too.
Okay, good.
It was really good, bro. When you talk that, I'm listening.
We'll be doing more of that in the future here. So hey, thanks again for the call, and
Cult of the Obelisk.
Yes, we'll have to dig deeper into that as well. All right, well, have a great weekend. Happy Infinite Plane Saturn Day, and thanks for your comments on
Later,
322. All right, Infinite Plane Saturn Day every weekend here. It's like a holiday. We gather and we talk about whatever we didn't get to cover during the previous week. We're talking about the 27-year-old eating a leg off of someone who got hit by a train. Honestly, I don't think they should arrest him for being an opportunist. If you push somebody onto the tracks and they get run over and you eat the leg, obviously you're a murderer and a cannibal. But if somebody gets hit on their own and you just pick it up and eat it, is that really as bad? Kate Middleton has cancer. She's talking about it. She looks like she's AI, so that's still going on. We'll see. We're still going to follow this story in Russia. I have some other little tidbits, but nothing really too much to add to what we've been saying. Great caller. Appreciate G33 calling. Really strange about that dog. Serious. Absolutely. Here's one. Chris from Rained Out Rantcast. And look, he and I fought on Twitter about chemtrails for a long time, and we still follow each other. It doesn't matter. We disagree on this one thing. But he's pointing out what kind of long rifles have this effect, and it's all sparks. This is simunition. And I'm in the camp here of pure skepticism. I look at the presentation and I withhold judgment. And consistently, this is consistent, we observe these events and we're like, hey, look, it's Scooby-Doo justice. In 24 hours, we're going to who did it and why. They're going to pull the mask off. We'll have the false flag, guardrailed explanation, the mainstream version. And just like every other event, we get the same exact template. Callbacks to other events. Similar camera angles. You got the guy with the flip phone from 2005 walking around this blurry phone, just showing you a bunch of dummies on the ground, hyper-realistic training dolls that can bleed and breathe. But people who know about weapons are going to see this stuff and say, that's not how guns work. Like, this is simunition. Anybody who's done any kind of training in a mass casualty drill would know simunition. Now, this is Kyle Rittenhouse trying to explain away how he got chased off the stage. He's claiming that thousands of patriots wanted to hear him speak, but instead protesters bought all the tickets.
System that the university implemented to the protesters. So I showed up to a room full of protesters booing me and calling me a murderer because the university censored Turning Point and took away their ticketing system and only allowed protesters and demonstrators in.
Whoa.
And I wasn't able to give a speech.
Okay, cry more. You know, I think that Kyle Rittenhouse ought to do a cage match with Grossarm, with a Gage Grossarm. What's his new name? Peter Penderton? What did Gage Grossarm change his name to? Then he got hit by a car. He's like, I don't want to be chased around by the media, so I'm going to change my name and hide. So he goes into hiding, and he changes his name, and then he gets hit by a car. And after he gets hit by a car, he goes on the news again. So I'm like, wait, you just changed your name because you don't want to be found. Now you get hit by a car, and now you're going back on the news, and you're making yourself known to the public again under your new name. And so Gage Grossarm's new name, the criminal Paul Prediger, known as Gage Grosskreutz, was hit by a car. And he cared so much about it, he went to tell the news about it, and they did a story on it. And here he is, as Peter Prediger, or Paul Prediger, on camera with WISN 12. It's like, okay, you just blew your own cover. And you wouldn't want to break your cover. You know, if you're someone like this, someone who's, you know, hated by the right. But nope. Paul Prediger. And one other point. I can understand wanting to change your name from Gage Grosskreutz because it's easy to find you. Why not go to something simple? Like, I don't know, like just Jerry Smith. But no, he goes into Paul Prediger. And there's no other name like that. Anyway, he was hit by Marvin Thomas. Grosskreutz claims he suffered multiple broken bones. I'm still questioning the original bicep wound on his arm. All right, this has been great. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate the callers, the comments, as always. This is Infinite Plane Saturn Day, just catching up on last week. We're going to be live on Discord later, so just stay tuned. And I'm going to be rebooting the computer really quick here, and then I'm going to turn on the 24/7 back to what it was. Anyway, thanks for all the comments as well and all the research. We are still examining this event. There's no reason for you to just assume that it happened as reported. You can say, I don't know yet. I need more information. And you can continue to say that into the future. There's no deadline for when you must believe it. Most people think you have to believe it as it's reported. No, you don't have to let Big Brother download agitprop into your skull. You can actually refuse to believe. You can be a belief refusenik. Anyway, this is Auto Hoax or GTFO. Chief Crow.